Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Matt Taylor here with my good buddy
Kyle Amundsen.
And today we have a very special guest, Amy Withawhy, in the house. So I was over at Kyle's on Sunday, or Saturday actually, for our Stranger Things get together, and we were talking about having you on, and I said, "What is Amy's last name?" And Christine's like, "With a Y," and I'm like, "No, it's like with a something with a Smith or something like that." I'm not a great reader.
It took a minute.
And when I see you, and I never knew it was with the Y. I just thought it was like some weird foreign last name.
That was intentional because
just a little closer to your mouth.
See, you think I don't know how to podcast. When I started doing my podcast, my co-host and I just go by Amy with a Y and Amy with an I because we don't want to be stalked online.
Okay.
And we're both named Amy, so that's part of our shtick is it's Amy with a Y and Amy with an I.
Cute.
But I made the decision once we started that I would have to kind of go anonymous on Facebook to avoid creepers.
Right.
And I didn't want people finding where I live or...
Why not?
Any of our creeper viewers out there,
please don't stop.
You can buy Amy's information on our online store.
Yes.
So
if it's for a reasonable
we're just
price.
not giving away that content for free.
Yeah.
Yes.
But no, I spelled it out that way because Facebook at the time was cracking down on fake last names. And I'm like, well, I need it to look like it could be a real last name. So yeah, it's fun when it clicks for people and they're like, oh.
You got one sucker who was like...
You're not the only one.
Yeah.
Most of my friends have forgotten my real last name, which is hilarious. So.
Yeah, I didn't grow up with any Withawhys.
Yeah, me neither.
That Withawhy clan.
I married into the Withawhys.
They're up in Hackensack, a bunch of cousin fuckers.
That sounds accurate. I have walked into other shops before, and people just from knowing me on Facebook have gone with Amy with a Y. I'm like, oh my god, that scares me.
That's great though. Like it's cool to have an established alias.
It is. It's fun.
I know. Why didn't we go with fake names?
You really should.
Man, I mean, I've had to at so many points in my life. I don't really want to do it now. You know, like.
Yeah. Well, I think when you have, I have kids. And our podcast is mostly about atheism and, liberal politics, and we live in a rural area.
We do?
And so I don't want my children targeted because of the stupid shit I say online. So, yeah. We can swear on here, right?
Oh,
okay,
no.
Good.
I already said cousin fuckers, so I think we've... And you know that. You watch the show.
I do.
Oh, we've said some horrendous shit on
lover.
here.
Yeah.
Yes, cousin lover. Chicken lover.
Oh, my God.
That was a great episode.
Yes, it was.
So speaking of cousin fuckers,
Yes.
so we've got a lot of shit to cover today. And now, do we have... right? I don't know. Seen anything in the news lately?
No,
there has been a few things. I was just going to say, it has been quite some time since we've sat at a table together.
Yes.
And I've had a few people kind of confront me about that and be like, hey, and it makes me feel really good that there are people out there that really want to actually sit there for 3 hours and listen to us talk about nothing.
I've been watching your YouTube page because I like to, like I said before, I'll sit in my living room and work on crafts, or the ADHD makes me do 25 things at once.
Oh, yeah.
But so I like to listen to your show in the background, and I've been refreshing, going, come on, you guys.
Well,
When's the next one coming out?
that is really good to hear, and go fuck yourself.
Okay, you too.
But I had to explain this to someone a while ago that hey, Kyle and I 100% love that you guys watch and that you want us to put out content, but we 100% don't do it for you.
Aren't doing it for you.
And it's just been a beautiful summer so far, and we've been busy and
we've still got to do shit, do projects and hang out together and shit. So we haven't really needed this in order to get together, which is kind of how it started.
It is true that once you've moved to town, the impetus for us to the only time we'd ever see each other is when we do the podcast, so it was a little bit more. But we still appreciate that you watch, and I'm sorry that it's been so long. Sorry, not sorry.
Get your shit together. Yeah. I mean, come on.
But and also it's been a really slow news 3 months.
Yeah,
Until
nothing has
now.
really happened.
Nothing's changed.
You know, nothing big, nothing major.
This
nothing,
week's
nothing of
been
note.
This week's been a real, yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? I've discovered that, like, as much as I spent a lot of time, like, trying to not be inflammatory and not argue on Facebook and stuff like that, after the last couple of days, I realized how much I miss that.
Oh, I love doing it.
Just mixing it up on Facebook.
Well, yeah. Or
I
at
haven't
least,
noticed at all that you haven't been inflammatory. on
or at
Facebook.
least, like, just lighting, like, you know, maybe throwing some sparks, you know, like maybe kindling a little fire and then stepping back.
I feel like
and-
you usually just push the dumpster out into the alley, leave some matches and some lighter fluid, and be like, "Hey, I don't know what you guys are going to do with this."
You
Like,
do kind
maybe?
of have a dumpster page a little
I
bit.
do,
I'm
I
just
do.
saying,
And
there's-
well, look at, I mean, like my friends list is full of like outrageous, you know, like rabid hillbilly cousin fuckers and like there's some unhinged liberals on there, and like it's a really nice mix. And every once in a while, like like I'll be arguing and someone will accuse me of just listening to my echo chamber, and I'm like, oh fucking my. Like, you don't know about my life. You don't know about the way I, you know, what I do on Facebook and shit, you know, like, that's fucking ridiculous.
Well, and
because
besides that, like, to me, my Facebook page, I don't give a shit if it's an echo chamber, because I like to be on it, and I like to converse with the people who are my friends. I'm not there to listen
Sorry, I
to
forgot to turn my
stupid
phone off. I was trying to.
bullshit that I don't want to listen to. So, like, I can get others. I have a few friends that are conservative still, and I let them stay around because they don't act like assholes towards my friends, which is, I don't care how people talk to me, but once they start attacking my friends, that really pisses me off. But
I'm kind of the
yeah.
opposite. Like, I don't care what you say to those fuckers, but don't talk shit to me.
Yeah, be nice to
Yeah.
me.
You know,
On the last post that you put up, was that just this morning about the church
Oh, yeah.
demolishing a couple houses?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and I wanted to bring that up too, because like, and you know, like it's you know, like I stated, it's none of my business, you know, like it's their property, whatever. But when a church, like when you got like 8,000 like homeless families in our state, which is a small number because of the winter die off, but and then you've got a church bulldozing a couple, like kicking people out of those houses. They were renting; those were rentals that they had.
right,
You
yeah.
know, just more income for the church. I don't know if that's taxed or not, but whatever.
It's
Again, none of my business.
Definitely.
Maybe it is my business as a taxpayer, but whatever. So, like, they booted those people out because they needed to tear those houses down to make a bigger parking lot.
Is that not what Jesus would do?
It is exactly what
you're
Jesus would
saying?
do. He was big on
Parking lots in
parking lots,
general,
yeah. Even though,
That's what
like,
I've
he
heard.
could have parked anywhere because, as we know, Jesus drove a Honda.
Right.
Like, what is that? Come to you not of my own accord. Anyway, stupid Honda jokes.
Oh,
Jesus,
Jesus.
really hated poor people, I feel like. That's what I
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of what I get from
So-
the old Bible.
So, like, I posted about like it's a weird flex for a church to just tear down a couple of houses. Also, like, it's really like rental property is like at a premium
Oh, yeah.
Never seen it.
here in,
Like this.
in town, and I mean anywhere.
Bad.
Yeah.
And you have to deal with that all the time.
That's, I mean, in my day job, that's like what I do is help people get into apartments.
and we're just gonna
it's
bulldoze a couple of
super
fucking houses.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and really, it's a church. Like I live across the street. I'll tell you, like, there's only a couple of hours out of the fucking week that parking lot is full. You know,
Right.
Yeah.
But fuck your houses. Get the fuck out. This is becoming a parking lot. Whatever. Like I
Yeah.
said, their property.
What I thought was interesting was somebody posted on a comment on that and said, ooh, you better check your friends count after this post. And I was like, you know, if somebody hasn't unfriended Kyle by now, like, really, there's not much more you can do to get rid of them.
I feel like people know who you are on Facebook at this point. It's
Right? Like, it
not-
shouldn't be like I'm a known commodity, right? Like
I mean,
you're gonna get some fucking off-color jokes, you know. Like my sense of humor is sophomoric. You know, there's gonna be plenty of like dick and fart jokes. There's some crossover there. But and then you're going to get like occasional political stuff, like, and then with even the political stuff,
is it like so? What is some crossover dick apart? Some
I didn't really have anything in
like
mind.
Shitty dick jokes.
That was just. I thought that was just a funny thing to throw in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. I find men love those jokes.
Man, for sure.
I'm willing to speak on behalf of all women and generalize about all men when I say that. You guys need to just stop. They're not that funny.
Oh. Not for you guys, but for us, I mean, we love it. My sense of humor, like, as much as like my hair's gone gray and I've gotten fat. I've always been kind of fat, but like, I'm getting fucking old. But my sense of humor is still 11 years old.
Yeah, which
yeah,
that tracks for most men right now. I mean, I am married. I've been married for 21 years. And my husband's favorite thing to do is watch anime. Oh. And I can't deal with anime. And when I hear it in the background, sometimes I'll just look at him and say, "Are you a 14-year-old girl? Like, what? I don't understand what there's all this dramatic music and all these."
And he looks up at you in his Sailor Moon costume and gives you the finger.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a real conundrum for you, Amy. So when you guys get divorced, you're going to have to decide if you're actually going to legally change your name to Withawhy. And if you do, then people won't be able to track you down to stalk you. So it's really a challenge.
Oof.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about that. I've mostly been thinking about where to hide his body because I watch a lot of true crime. So he's made sure that both of our kids know that if he is ever found dead, they need to alert the police to their mother.
Like, we've all, like, you're a true crime fan.
Oh, I love
you're a true crime fan, or at least have been, watched a lot. Christine has watched, I've listened to a lot because of Christine when we listen to that shit on road trips and stuff. So here's my question. Why the fuck do people still get caught for murder?
I don't know.
With all the resources available.
I don't know.
How do you not know how to pull off a perfect murder?
They must be people who don't watch Dateline is all I can figure out.
Or Netflix, or
Netflix.
like...
I mean, there are people who don't like true crime, which I don't understand. But if you've watched any amount of true crime and you know that DNA exists, come on.
In all fairness...
It's not rocket science.
I guess the people that don't like... the people that don't like true crime stuff are clearly the people that are out committing real crimes.
So
True.
I mostly don't like real crime, actually. I like... Though, and I think that it's kind of been put in the true crime genre, but it's not really, doesn't really belong there. But like In the Dark, where they got into the whole Curtis Flowers trial. But that's more like, Innocence Project's kind of, take. I'm not interested at all in serial killers or like, weird murders. That part doesn't interest me.
I feel like my friends and I have talked about this a lot because women seem to have a reputation for really liking true crime even more so than men do.
Yeah, which seems weird.
I think my theory is that, as a woman, when you're, again, speaking on behalf of all women.
All women, yes.
When you're watching that kind of thing and you see, this man, Ted Bundy, followed these women into the parking lot and he asked, and you think to yourself, well, I would never walk by myself in a parking lot. And so you feel like it's almost like you feel like safer somehow. Like, I know all the things not to do because that guy could kill me. So now I don't know. It's this weird mental thing where it makes you feel a little bit safer.
Because of the way my brain works, when you were talking about that, walking through a parking lot, I just had this fucking like we should do skits because I just had this goddamn just this little scene like where this killer's like creeping up on this lady in a parking lot, and she gets close to him and she's like, "Would you fuck off? I'm trying to listen to this true crime podcast," and he fucking scurries away, and I'm like,
that's a good strategy.
Like that's how that works.
I think a lot of it's just honestly fascination with the macabre, just like with everything else. The weird thing is I don't like fake. Like, I hate gory movies. I do not like scary movies. I don't like being
most
scared.
Of that shit insults your intelligence anyway.
But yeah, a big part of the true crime thing is trying to figure out what's going on inside people's heads. Like, it's so foreign to me to want to go out and murder 25 people, maybe one or two, but thinking about the psychology of it is what's really fascinating.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
So, and yeah, I guess that I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
But I am interested in, like, I loved Making a Murderer, that Netflix show.
Yep.
But again, that's about somebody who didn't commit the crime, and at least
Yeah.
in last year.
Well, and I mean, the Innocence Project type stuff, I love watching that because,
Yeah.
and honestly, it makes me feel good that maybe we're making some progress. We throw way too many people in jail. We convict too many innocent people.
Yeah.
And so that kind of stuff I love watching because I like to.
I loved the Curtis Flowers one. And that was so cool because it was almost happening real time because it ended up going to the Supreme Court. And actually, what's the Kavanaugh, right? In the Supreme, I was like, huh. He wasn't. I mean, he did. He wrote the majority opinion in that case, and like he didn't sound like a complete
did
fucking
one
idiot.
correct thing, yeah.
It's about the extent of what I know about Kavanaugh, other than watching the Saturday Night Live bits back when he was
really
running.
likes to drink and grope women.
Exactly,
Yeah.
those things. So like
Fuck that
pretty much
dude.
all around a good guy is really what I'm
Yeah.
coming up with.
He's
That's the
kind of guy
vibe I'm
that
getting.
I feel like, again, as a woman, he's the kind of guy that we really want to hang out with. Is somebody who just does not respect women
Right.
at all.
That douchey
And-
frat boy vibe and
Right.
stuff.
I love the douchey frat boy.
So
vibe.
I have a really like a serious question for you,
Okay.
Amy. For like because you can speak for all women.
Yes.
If I hear what you're saying, and I think that you are being facetious. However, why is that so fucking true then? So why does it seem like those are the dudes that so many women want to hang out with?
You know, it's an age-old question that I don't quite know how to answer because, you know, I have been thinking a lot. You guys talk a lot about toxic masculinity and, you know.
You mean
what that
masculinity?
means. Yes, exactly. So I've been kind of kicking around in my head. There is, as somebody who is attracted to men, there is something to the idea that you want this protector, or that those masculine traits, you want somebody who is looking out
Yeah,
for you and protect.
assertive
Like, that's
and
just there.
confident.
That's just in your brain. That's part of our lizard brains. That's what we are looking for. And a lot of us like rich people. I hate to say that, but listen, I'm not going to turn down a rich dude if he's good looking. But I don't know. I think it's overblown a little bit, honestly. I don't think most women go for douchey frat bros.
You don't work in a bar?
No,
Weird.
that's probably my problem.
I think that's your problem because that
But
really is a case study in douchery.
I will tell you a secret about women in bars and douche bros. I met my husband in a bar because that's what you did back then. And the thing that intrigued me about him was that he was the first person who said no when I came up and said, "Will you buy me a drink?" Because that's just what we did. My friends and I would go and we'd be like, "These dudes are fucking stupid." You would just walk up to them and go, "You gonna buy me a drink?" And they go, "Okay," and then you'd leave. And we never felt bad because we were like, they can say no, they're just not saying no, and so we get to drink free all night. When I met my husband, I literally walked up to him and said, "So you can buy me a drink?" And he just said, "No, I'm not doing that."
Huh.
And I was like, interesting, challenge accepted. Like
That's a humble flex.
but like
It's actually even a technique though.
we
that
are
dudes
terribly
use.
behaved at bars as
Yes.
women. We really do take advantage of men. I feel like it's the universe's way of balancing out stuff. Maybe like we get domestic violence is by far perpetrated against women more often, so maybe we get free drinks out of the deal, and that's just.
I mean,
know.
good trade.
I mean,
Right.
and yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah,
can't.
it always has blown my mind. I mean, we've talked many times on the show about dick pics and how I think it is like the most ridiculous thing in the world.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a buddy of mine at Jitsi.
It's because your dick doesn't have the right costumes.
That's it. Well, basically, he's like, dude, the thing on dick pics is so stupid. I was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, they fucking work. And I was like, no, they do not.
No, they don't.
Well, according to him, they do, and I have a tendency to believe him. Like that's the thing is, it's like
But
it's like.
it's kind of a numbers game.
But, like,
If you
solicited
put
or
enough dick
unsolicited?
pics out there,
Well, I don't know. Didn't interview him about it. He was just like, yeah, the whole thing about not sending dick pics, super stupid. You should send as many as you can.
No.
And I was like, no,
Not
hey,
true.
I 100% agree with you.
Not true.
But I am not 100% sure.
See, that's the point in the conversation where you have to like get the info. Where you're just like, all right, let's see it.
Would you like me to tell you what we women are doing with all of those dick pics?
Oh, definitely circulating them.
Circulating them and making fun of them and talking to each other about these fucking dudes sending us pictures of their dicks that we. A solicited dick pic is much different. I do know some women who like to get a
Yeah.
if they ask for a picture of your dick, feel free to send it. But if
I'm
you're
gonna
just
go with
having
no
a
on
conversation
that.
and then you just send somebody a picture of your, or even on a dating, nobody wants to see your dick. It's not that great.
dating.
I promise you, nobody wants to
Now,
look at it.
as
Picture.
Kyle is famous
No.
for saying, unless it's in the right costume.
That is true.
I mean, if you
That
could be
would
really
that would
creative about
intrigue
it,
me.
you
If
know.
it were in a little
Yeah.
clown costume, that might be fun. No, I do know a few women who do like getting dick pics, but again, only if they are solicited. I don't know a single person who gets an unsolicited dick pic and goes, yeah, that's the guy I want to hang out with.
I even find, and I'm a prude. I think we've
I mean, me
established
too,
that.
yeah.
But I really am a prude, and I don't even like unsolicited sexy pics
No.
from women. I think that's
Yeah.
like what the fuck? Put that shit away.
Yeah.
And
We're not at that
No.
point yet. I don't need to see it.
I don't think we ever get to that point. Like,
I mean, I haven't dated since the George W. Bush administration, so I'm not one to talk. I haven't had to do online dating. Most of my information comes through my co-host, who prolifically internet dates. 'Cause she
Oh,
got
really?
divorced a few years ago, and she hopped right on Tinder and was just. But I'm in a few groups, mainly atheist groups for women, and they will talk about their own experiences with online dating, and it sounds horrific. And none of them want to see your unsolicited dick pic. Like, they just don't.
I'm kind of
I
mad that
don't.
like I came up after the time of Tinder and stuff because I feel like I could have used Tinder to Tinder. I
Could've
feel like I
been
would have used
fun.
that shit to my advantage. Yeah. Instead, I had to like do shit the old-fashioned way and.
Amy
you know,
always tells
fun.
me it's like video games, but with men. And it's
Nice.
you just can swipe, and it's like playing the most fun video game ever.
so like I spent a few years of my life single in my 40s, and it fucking sucked.
Yeah,
I
do not
found
envy my
that to be
single
just
friends.
like
Oh well, especially in our area. I mean, the dating
Oh,
scene in
God.
our area is like, I mean,
The single
like,
women
you're,
I
like
know
swimming in a
here-
fucking cesspool. I mean,
yeah.
all the single women I know who are friends of mine who live here have all widened their search area at
Oh,
least to the
understandable.
Twin Cities, because if you just search for the dudes around here,
Especially the dudes that are on a dating app
Yeah.
that are,
sending you dick pics.
sending you dick pics. Yeah, just
Nobody wants that.
Is there a dating app where you can just cut out the middleman and use your dick pic as your profile picture?
Probably.
I mean, one would think like,
Yeah, what's that Christian one?
oh, ChristianSwinger.com.
Plenty of fish. Yeah.
No, well, maybe it's
Farmers
both of those
only?
things. No, it's the really big one.
I don't know.
What-
I thought Plenty of Fish was the Christian one. Like I use Christian dating
No,
apps, I have no idea.
it is fucking. Though I'm not saying Plenty of Fish isn't Christian. I have no
Yeah.
idea. But what? eHarmony.
Oh,
eHarmony.
Is that
Yes.
explicitly Christian?
Well, no, it's not explicitly Christian, but the organization's very Christian, and
okay.
they were pretty famous. And now, we're spitballing here, so this may or may not have any basis in fact.
Mm-hmm.
And there you go. But I believe they were the first ones that wouldn't allow gay profiles.
Oh.
Yeah. And that was like a big, and this was quite a few years ago. But I remember Joe Rogan telling a story about how he got an eHarmony sponsorship when he was pretty new in the podcasting, and he was like, "Oh, fucking cool!" And they were gonna pay good money, and he was like, "Awesome!" And he doesn't at least when in the early days he didn't read copy. He just he would just tell people to buy whatever product it was, and eHarmony he got one. They sponsored him for one podcast because he was like, want to get your dick sucked? Everybody likes to get the dick sucked.
That's-
eHarmony. Just fucking get it on there. Just say, hey, want to get my dick sucked. And they were like, no, absolutely not. And they pulled his ad after. I thought that was funny. I searched for that ad, for that, him actually saying that for fucking
And
hours and hours.
exist.
Well, it probably does exist, but he's got,
Hours of-
3,700 podcasts that date back for however long, and now a lot of them are missing. So
You got to weed through a lot of shit to get to, because I've tried to scour, I've searched for shit on Joe Rogan's show before, but I'm not willing to watch that much Joe Rogan
me neither.
or listen to that much Joe
can't.
Rogan to get that shit.
I maintain that Joe Rogan is the Gwyneth Paltrow for men.
the what?
The Gwyneth Paltrow for men. Do you know who Gwyneth Paltrow is?
Yeah,
And
except
Goop
why
and
is she?
Hogan.
Is she? Oh, so she's good for women, or she's
No.
something.
She
good?
sells a lot of new agey bullshit to women that they don't need,
Hmm.
and she puts forth a lot of theories that aren't true and
Where-
make no sense,
wh-
but puts her
in
name
what?
behind it.
Where though? Does she have her own podcast, or does she?
No, she has
I haven't
her own
heard shit
she has her
from-
own empire. So I'm not. It's more that Joe Rogan throws out a lot of alternative ideas out
Yeah.
there, and a lot of them are stupid.
Agree.
And
I totally
that's why
100%
he's the
agree. I think
Gwyneth
even
Paltrow
he
for
would agree.
men,
I feel like I spend a lot of my time defending Joe Rogan.
and you really shouldn't. You
Well,
know,
actually,
because-
the thing is, I don't have to. I mean, the guy has like a gazillion followers and is like, pretty much bulletproof. But I think one of the reasons why he says so much stupid shit is because he says so much shit. Like, he sits there and has 3-hour-long
Yeah.
podcasts with people, and in that
I-
time is just talking shit. They're not. It's just a conversation. It's not. So like, and then people pull out things that he says, and of course they're fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, he's high as giraffe pussy.
And many
half the
times
time
he's
that
high as giraffe pussy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my biggest problem with Joe Rogan is just the platform that he gives to people who have been fully discredited and people who put forth, to me, dangerous ideas. Like
Yeah,
Jordan
yeah.
Peterson. He lets them
Oh, see, now I
come
fucking love
on.
Jordan Peterson.
Oh, no. We can't
Love
talk
Jordan
about
Peterson.
Jordan Peterson. No.
We talk about Jordan Peterson pretty often.
Jordan
huge
Peterson
fan.
is the Deepak Chopra for straight
Well,
white men.
I used to I enjoyed some Jordan Peterson, and then I was like, oh no, he's a douchebag. And then I can't even be mean to him because he fell apart, and now he's so like a crumbled husk of
Doing
his
better now.
former. Is he crying every fucking
Well,
every time he gets
yeah,
in
no,
front
he
of the
kind of
camera?
cries a little bit.
Here's-
So,
I
I
so
mean,
do you?
and not that there's anything wrong with crying. It's just that when you have weird breakdowns at inopportune times,
yeah.
and
No, I hear what
he's
you're saying.
Fucked up,
Actually, I have a friend who he had a seizure and then a bad accident and probably had a traumatic brain injury during it, and then now every time I talk to him, it's like I love the man, but I'm like, God damn, I have to endure the crying. It's a little, but.
Is
Yeah.
it true that he had himself put into a medically induced coma?
Yeah.
Okay, so
So
when
what
you do
happened?
that, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, all that bullshit, and then you have to be put in a medically induced coma.
So what happened? And I don't want to speak on his behalf exactly, but his wife died, and or did she die? I can't remember if she died or was going to die. Was super tragic, very stressful, and he was having a hard time with it. He ended up being prescribed benzos, whatever. Ended up taking them to help with his anxiety and depression, which he had struggled with his whole life. Benzos are apparently fucking incredibly addictive, and
yeah.
the withdrawal from them is
Bad.
almost fatal. And he ended up that's why he fell apart. Because he was trying to get off the benzos, and they ended up fucking him up really bad, and then he ended up having to get put into that induced coma. And now he's on a crusade to try to get people to understand how bad these benzos are. But
I mean,
yeah.
my main problem with and I am not an avid Jordan B. Peterson follower. I don't read everything I've read enough of his shit to. But his first, I may be mistaken, but the thing that made him kind of rise to prominence was the Canadian, because he's Canadian, right?
Yep.
So he was
He's
very
a Canadian professor.
He was very, very angry about pronouns and trans people.
Actually,
and
that's a mischaracterization of what actually happened.
Okay.
What he was upset about was that the Canadian government passed a law saying that you, as a professor, are required by law to use whoever's preferred pronouns, person's preferred pronouns.
okay.
And he said, no.
So he wanted to be a dick.
Maybe.
Well, I don't
but
know.
what
That
he
sounds
wanted
exhausting.
to do
Like-
was he wanted to say, you cannot pass a law infringing on speech. You cannot tell me, or you cannot tell anyone, any professor, that they are that it's compulsory for them to do something like this.
But why that issue? Why is that the
Actually,
issue that...
So it's a good question, Amy, but I don't believe that was the hill Jordan B. Peterson went to die on. He just took a stance against it, and it projected him to superstardom. It was a total Streisand effect
Sure.
in the for that issue, because the last thing in the world, people who were on the side of that forced censorship or compulsory speech, the last thing they wanted to do was make Jordan B. Peterson fucking famous, but they did. So
Well,
the
when
pronoun issue is not, it's not that he, and I'm, again, not Jordan, and don't want to speak for him, but it wasn't so much that he was against somebody having alternative preferred pronouns. What he was against was the compulsory speech from whatever. Now, is it something that's kind of like, to me, it's like, call people whatever the fuck they want to be called. I mean, like, what's the big deal? But I also am not in favor of the idea that the government gets to tell us what we can and cannot say. Now, it's different if we're talking about hate speech, but we're not talking about hate speech. We're talking about somebody's preferred pronouns, and it's fucking hard to do. Now, in my day job, I work in social services. I'm not a social worker, but I work in social services, and we are obviously very fucking woke, I guess it's the only way to say it in that industry. And I get it. Yeah, try to be inclusive. And even in that world, it is difficult to, frankly, fucking remember that this person wants to be called they them. Like, this person is gender fluid, so you have to fucking ask them. Like, and it's like, okay, like. But,
and a lot of people change their pronouns more than they change their fucking underwear.
Well, no,
I mean,
exactly.
Whatever, change it to whatever.
Literally,
Like, and I want to be respectful like that. It's just that, like, there's a difference between, like, me being respectful about it and then and expecting me to be keeping track. Like, if somebody corrects me, then I'm going to do my best. If somebody gets mad at me because I haven't kept track well enough, they can go fuck themselves.
right?
And so when I hear that entire argument about, it's not about trans people, it's about the forced speech, that really feels to me like the Civil War wasn't about slavery, it was about states' rights. I mean, I hear what you're saying about the forced speech, but the forced speech is in regards to trans people and people's fear around I don't even know how to word this correctly. Me, it's not that hard to, I know a lot of trans people. For some reason on our show, we have a lot of trans listeners, and I'm not sure how that happened. Like, we started looking at who the demographics were that listened to us, and it turned out to be a lot of trans women, and I don't think we've done anything to court that particular demographic. But it's been nice to get to know a lot of them and to hear their points of view on it. And most of them will tell you that in the real world, when you're interacting with one of them, when you're talking to somebody, when you're in a college situation, they don't expect everybody to remember exactly what their pronouns are at all times. It's more of if they've, if my name's Amy and I've
right.
told you my name's Amy and you say hi Karen every time you see me,
right?
Eventually, that's going to get old and piss me off because I've told you.
Right.
But most of them are very, very willing to just move on with their day, to correct you and say,
No
I'm
tways
sorry,
about it.
I go by they, them. And
There's a
move on.
huge difference, though, between
Twitter
respecting
is not the real
somebody's
world.
pronouns and having the government compel you
Sure.
to respect
Sure.
somebody's pronouns.
And I don't know enough about Canadian law to know if that was something that was just in place
yeah.
in universities.
Well,
or
It was just in
something
universities,
All
but
the
it was
law is laid down by the Canadian president, who is actually the moose with the strongest antlers. That is how
That
Canadians
makes
are ruled.
sense. That makes sense.
That's Canada.
I mean, I feel like, to me,
actually Justin Trudeau is kind of hot.
it feels like there is a difference between, the government saying in colleges, in public universities where we welcome everybody, we are going to start using the pronouns and names that people tell us they want to be called. I mean, it's not, if we find you at Starbucks and you use the wrong pronouns, we're sending you to jail.
I'm not. I
seems-
can't even disagree with you on that.
I mean-
all I'm saying is that's the issue that Jordan B. Peterson got so famous for, not his hatred for trans people, right?
But
like,
can you see how it sounds like it's hatred for trans people when that's the
I
issue
can
he's willing
see
to
that
get really,
again.
really
Not
angry about?
not the issue he wanted to die on, just the one that he ended up getting famous because.
That he spent a lot of time on, to be fair.
Well, when he came out and said, "Look, I am not willing to accept compelled speech by the government," it turned into a huge thing. He was very passionate about not letting the government compel speech. In that light, it's very hard to argue. I don't think the government should compel speech.
I don't either. But do you think that if it were an issue where the government was trying to say, okay, on college campuses, we're no longer going to allow use of the term Nazi, or we're not going to let you call students Nazis, or something, if there was some other issue that was not involving transgender people, just something entirely different that was still about speech,
then
do you
I
think he would have been as angry about it? And
I don't know if he would have been as angry about it, but I certainly know that the left wouldn't have tried to crucify a liberal.
Is he liberal? Though?
He's far more liberal than I mean, again, liberal is a weird word.
Yeah, because
It is.
well, then,
But
do you mean liberal? Do you mean classically liberal?
I
mean, do you mean
a lot of things?
but it's but like that's not the fucking Nazi we need to worry about. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, no.
And I feel like we do
I
this.
don't think anybody thinks he's the worst threat to
Oh
humanity.
man, you should go on. You should
But
go on Twitter
he's
sometime.
kind of a dick. But
See,
again,
and now
Twitter is not
I
the real
think
world.
he's amazing. I've listened to hundreds of hours of Jordan B. Peterson. And actually, oddly enough, I wanted to talk a little bit about the religion aspect too. But one of the things that I most have enjoyed of him was a pretty deep dive Bible study, which is very interesting because I have no Christian faith, but it was really interesting because it made sense of kind of the and I'm going to do a horrible job trying to explain it. Like, here's my pitch for listening to this because it makes no sense at all. But it did a very good job explaining how these stories and allegories, how they become kind of part of our culture. He does a great thing about Pinocchio and how like basically how Pinocchio is just another. And it's interesting how these themes continue to be put out throughout the course of our history, and I found it incredibly interesting. But now, does that mean that I think that I agree with every? No, I mean I don't. But I don't have to. I don't have to agree with what somebody, with every aspect of what somebody says to enjoy that.
Especially somebody like that. That like I've listened to stuff where I'm like, wow, like I didn't think about it that way. That's brilliant. Then again, I've heard him be a really, fucking intellectually dishonest douchebag too, and I'm like, fuck that, and then of course, like at this point when I look at his like what's happened to him over the last like 5-10 years or whatever, now I'm like, okay, now you've been outed as kind of a fucking hypocrite, and
See, so you say that, Kyle, but I don't find that. Where are you finding him being a hypocrite?
That whole like his whole thing about when you talk about like when you're beating up personal responsibility all the time and this is what you need to do. These are all the things that you need to do.
Clean your room,
to get yourself out of this. Like blah 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 blah. Just clean your room. Start get some exercise. Blah blah. Get into a medically induced coma because you can't kick your habit like everybody else. Oh wait, no, that's just me. We're not talking about we're not talking about me. But
I don't think anywhere in the whole clean your room thing was don't get medical attention for
that's
somebody.
Not medical attention. I mean, it's a medical procedure.
He would have died without it.
Do you think so?
Yeah, no, yeah, he was like, well, whatever. You look into it. I feel like I'm on I have to be defending Jordan Peterson, but I do not find the hypocrisy in it. I have yet to come up with that.
I'm not nearly qualified to debate Jordan, just because I'm sure you've listened to quantity-wise so much more from him than I have. I have seen small things that I don't like.
Of course.
That put me off, that make me not willing to listen to everything he says.
But when somebody has tons and tons of stuff out,
sure,
it's easy enough to kind of cherry pick through things that are, and I mean you can do the same thing with Rogan. People do often.
You can do that with anybody.
You
can do that with
if
me.
they
I
have
can
a
go
whole
back
lot
and
of stuff
to
out
things
there.
I said 5 years ago and be ashamed of the things that I said 5 years ago, and you can pull anything out of context. I do feel like Twitter.
Well, I don't know that it's necessarily out of context.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the stuff. I mean, we can talk like the Rogan thing with the N-word video. That was literally, in my opinion, like a whole issue of context.
Yeah.
But many of the things Joe Rogan says are just fucking idiotic because he's kind of an idiot. That doesn't have anything to do with whether or not I like him. And what I really like about Joe is that he has turned me on to some just incredible people where I never would have been introduced to them any other way. So that, I like conversations.
So to kind of tie this into what's been happening this week, there is still so much sexism and anti-feminism going on in the world and in this country. And so I feel like I'm extra sensitive to people who have a platform who really feel the need to just rag on feminism or on trans people, or like there are bigger issues in the world than shitting on people who already are shit on quite a bit.
At the same time,
I don't know.
At the same time, I feel like there are bigger issues in the world than identity politics and shit like that.
Sure.
I feel like one of the things that nobody's talking about, particularly like on our side of things, nobody is really saying, oh, who's really responsible at the end of the day for us or for this? Fucking we are.
Oh, I say that all the fucking time.
Barack Obama could have like Roe versus Wade. We wouldn't need to worry about Roe versus Wade if the shit was protected by law.
Fuck Bernie bros. I'll just put that out there. I talk all the time about how a lot of this is our own fault because we cannot. There's an old saying that Republicans fall in line and Democrats fall in love, and they are much better at finding out what needs to be done, sticking to that party line. Never, liberals. It seemed, and I think it's I hate to say this. I think it's because we're a little smarter, a lot of us. But we see more gray issues.
Nuanced, right?
Nuanced.
The thing is
we're not good at supporting each other.
No, we fucking turn on each other.
Absolutely.
We eat our, we fucking eat our young. We goddamn we're horrible about turning on each other.
I feel like I almost need to like give people my voting record, before I engage in a conversation. I might be no, I really am liberal. These are the people I voted for since I was 18 years old. Okay, and now, because it's there are so many issues that I think, especially the far left, are so fucking wrong on that I can't even get my mind around it.
I mean, I'm basically, if my political ideology is about as far left as you can go, but I also recognize that I live in a country where that's not going to be a reality. The things that I would love to have happen are not going to happen because I live in a country where a large percentage of the population doesn't agree with what I think is best for the world. And so the best we can do is try to do less harm whenever possible. We can't have this perfect utopia that a lot of us lefties think should exist. It's just never going to happen. And so how do we staunch some of the bleeding from some of these issues?
And I think part of the way that the only way that the left is ever going to figure out how to do that is by stop killing their own kind. Well, because like here's a good example. And here's probably somebody else nobody fucking likes, but I'm a big fan of Sam Harris.
Fuck Sam Harris.
Yeah, he's one of my absolute favorite humans, and he did a podcast the other day about the Uvalde shooting, and it was really, I mean, it was a very emotional podcast, and I just thought he did a fantastic job, which is really the only place I learned anything about that actual thing. Like, I followed some of the coverage, but man, they just skipped all of the really seemingly important shit. But he was talking about gun control, and Sam is a guy who has gotten into firearms, and he owns a gun, and blah 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 blah, and so he's a lot like
I know. I actually have listened to his episodes where he's talked about his stance on gun control.
And his stance, like, is far more restrictive than anything that's ever been proposed, that has ever had any chance of actual passing in whatever. And he's still being, like, flayed alive by the left, saying, oh, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, we're never going to win if we continue to treat our allies as adversaries.
Yes.
And that we do it constantly.
Yes, but because maybe I will be, I don't know, maybe I'll be that lefty that we're all talking about. But I feel like in a lot of ways, I absolutely agree that we eat our own and we attack each other and we do a lot of fucking stupid shit that doesn't support each other. The problem I have with Sam Harris specifically is because I'm in pretty deep into the atheist world and the atheist movement, and I've been around movement atheism for so many years. Most of the loudest voices you hear within movement atheism are straight white men like Sam Harris, and these guys have a huge platform, and they could use that platform to bring people with diverse points of view and people that aren't exactly like them, and they choose not to do that by and large. There are so many people within the atheist movement.
I mean, first of all, fuck Sam Harris for being a straight white man. I mean, that's important.
Listen, I'm married to a straight white man.
Well, fuck that guy too. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it's not Sam Harris's fault he's a straight white man.
It's absolutely not his fault he's a straight white man. What is his fault is that he has a huge following and a huge platform, and if he wanted to, he could bring on someone like Mandisa Thomas, who leads Black Nonbelievers. He could bring on more women to his show. He could try to get some more diverse viewpoints, and I feel like he just does not. And it's not just him. I'm not trying to just harp on him. It is a big problem in atheist podcasting in general that most of the shows that you hear about, the shows that get the sponsors, the shows that are around for a long time, it's all straight white dudes that have a platform now and could use that to bring more voices in. Because I think inherently diversity is a good thing, in my opinion. I think the more that you can, and sometimes you have to force that diversity, and I know that sounds shitty, but we need to be listening to all different types of people, and when we keep putting the exact same people up over and over and over again, we end up losing fucking abortion rights because the Supreme Court is completely Catholic right now. But look at how much things changed when they started letting more women onto the court. Those women made a lot of decisions that were pro-women, that weren't happening before we had more women on the Supreme Court. And that took saying, yes, I'm going to put a woman on the Supreme Court. And sure, maybe there's a dude who is just as qualified as that woman is.
I mean, but
But to make progress, I feel like we need to start forcing some of those changes in that way. Like the fact that Joe Biden said he wanted to have a black woman Supreme Court justice. I'm totally fine with that because I think there's plenty of black women out there who are qualified, who can do it, and we need more. It's not going to solve all of our problems, and it's not.
It drives me fucking crazy.
Fix everything, but we need to start having more
So
diversity.
hey, like I was a number one RBG fan. Like I have an RBG bobblehead.
Fuck her for not retiring.
I was just about to say, fuck her for not fucking retiring. Listen, I love RBG. I have RBG.
Oh,
Absolutely.
that's a good point.
An
Actually,
icon.
like
She
she died instead of
fucking
retired, right? Because
Yeah.
then she could have got a. That's
she
a
knew
good
what was
point.
coming, and the fact that she didn't retire.
But man,
still kills me.
she was an incredible
She
Supreme
was an
Court justice.
amazing justice. She was an amazing lawyer.
But it drives me crazy. So, I've never been a huge Joe Biden fan. Actually, like the thing is
Me
actually saying I'm a huge Joe Biden fan. Like I don't think that anybody can actually. I mean, how can you be an actual fan?
You know,
But-
by being an 80-year-old white Democrat.
Yeah.
But it actually, I find that just ridiculous for him to say, I want to appoint a black female Supreme Court justice.
I know.
Now, that doesn't mean I don't think that there are plenty of black female people who are capable of being Supreme Court justice. But
You just shouldn't say, I'm going to hire somebody that's black.
I disagree.
It's so to me that is literally like you're saying I am not going to appoint the most qualified candidate. I'm going to appoint a candidate that fits this criteria. That's not. I feel like that's.
okay with that.
I am absolutely not okay with that. And again, I thought the whole thing about because he said that about Kamala Harris.
I'm
too,
okay
like he
with
was-
the idea, but I just think it sounds like pandering.
Oh,
No,
sure.
it doesn't
absolutely.
sound like pandering. It says
It-
I'm fucking pandering. It's not a. It's not a.
Here's the thing, though.
It's not
okay,
a.
hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. I agree. It does sound very much like pandering, but hear me out. In the history of the United States, how many Supreme Court justices have been women?
Yeah, I have no idea. All I can think of is.
Not that many.
yeah, no,
We
of course
just
not.
we have the most women on now than we ever have. But up until the 1980s, there had never been any women on the Supreme Court.
Right.
Does that mean that there were no women who were qualified to be on the Supreme Court? Did that mean that all those white men
Absolutely
were
not.
more qualified
That
than women?
100%. I agree with you 100%.
This whole most qualified thing to me is a little bit ridiculous.
So this is
because-
so I'm not saying that Joe Biden shouldn't appoint a black female Supreme Court justice.
You don't like that he put it out there and said it
To
that
say
way. Yeah.
to say I am going to I am not going to find the most qualified candidate. I'm going to find the most
disagree.
qualified black female candidate. No, it's impossible to not say that because what if there is this incredible, like Asian alien that like is the most qualified Supreme Court justice. It or not even most qualified, like most dynamic, the one whatever. I feel like you're putting yourself in a box to do that.
I
And-
disagree. I think if you
And
listen,
look, by him saying that he needed to like get he was going to have his vice president be a black female, it turned out to be Kamala Harris. Fucking yay! Like she has no chance of being the next candidate. So now we're fucking stuck. There's I have no idea how the Democratic Party is possibly going to put a candidate forward
to me,
in the next election.
let me try it. Okay, so when I hear that, what I kind of hear is that we can't say out loud that we're going to try to put more women on the court or more black people. And we can't say that out loud because what if the magical white straight man that is more qualified is out there and he deserves that job more than any black woman out there. That's just, the reality is that there are plenty of qualified people to be in the Supreme Court. Tons and tons and tons of people. It's a very coveted role. And I think at this point in our history, we need to be forcing the changes to make the court more diverse. There's nowhere else to go. I think if you just keep saying, well, we're going to keep finding white men to be the most qualified unless we force some changes. I think a lot of times men don't, and I'm not speaking about present company. I'm saying that I think it's probably
I'm
hard.
sure I wear this shoe.
I'm sure I feel like it's probably hard when you are male and when you've grown up as part of kind of the majority and the default.
The patriarchy. To really fully understand, like, me as a child, I had no reference point for a woman being president at all. Like, it wasn't something that I could even think about because
it's not
that
hard
just
at all.
didn't happen.
It's not hard at all to be a white man.
Like, it's
actually super fucking easy.
You need to have representation for people so that they can see
100%
themselves
agree.
do that. And I don't buy that the most qualified person is always going to be.
I am not
Which
saying
I'm
that
not-
the
I'm
most
not
qualified,
saying-
and
no,
I
I'm
don't
not.
think anybody is saying that the most qualified person it has to be a white man. And I
don't think so.
understand that historically white men have been the ones who, like, seriously, what the fuck was it? What's the jack-off's name? The beer guy from the Supreme
Kavanaugh?
Court? Kavanaugh. Tom. I mean, seriously,
him.
he's the most qualified? Like, that,
No.
ridiculous. But I think it is not only wrong to say I'm going to put the next Supreme Court justice is going to be a black woman. Not only wrong, it's fuel for the right.
Sure.
And
I'll give you
also
that.
it pisses off center left.
So how do we get more black women on the Supreme Court?
You just appoint a black woman to the Supreme Court, and that, like, but when you as a president say that you're going to do that, make a declaration, you put yourself in a box, and you basically see it's not a fair contest. And then I feel like it undermines. So that, let's say that they do put Oprah on the Supreme Court, because obviously she could do it. She could do anything. Then Oprah's like, oh, I just got this job because I'm a black woman, and that undermines that whole thing.
So here's what kind of changed my mind about this topic in general, because I used to very strongly believe the same thing, that you can't just go around and be like, okay, we need quotas, or we need this many women to be, because that is ridiculous, and you should be looking at a person as an individual.
Yeah, I don't know. There was some famous guy that said that. What was his name?
I get that. But
Martin Luther King, that's right.
I saw a documentary years ago now. I can't remember where I saw it or when I saw it, but it was about, I want to say Iceland, one of the Scandinavian countries. I don't even remember. But they decided as a country that they wanted to make it a priority to have CEOs, corporate boards made up of 50% women and 50% men. They just that was their goal. They wanted to make sure that there was equal representation of women and men on corporate boards.
Okay.
And they forced that to happen.
Okay.
They said, we need to hire this many women, and that's just the way it's going to be. And there were probably men who didn't get that job because they were men. But now they have fucking 50% representation on corporate boards, and women's interests are protected a lot more than they used to be when there were no fucking women. Sometimes you have to force people to do the right thing.
I kind of agree. I shouldn't say I kind of. I agree with that. You can't always trust people to do the right thing.
You can never trust people to do the right thing.
Because, like, if you just trusted people to do the right thing, where the fuck would we be?
Why have all the Supreme Court justices still all been white? How
you
that
can basically
possible?
trust people to do the fucking wrong thing.
Okay.
Like,
Okay. If there, and I don't disagree with that. I don't think I disagree with that. I have to chew on it a little bit. But I think that if the Supreme Court was going to try to become an accurate reflection, and I know I say that word wrong, but I like it, an accurate reflection of the ethnic makeup of the United States. And then they were like, okay, so we're gonna have.
We would have already had our black guy, and that'd be Clarence fucking Thomas.
Oh.
Yeah, we already. Yeah.
He is
so
such an exception to the. He's the thing I keep thinking just negates my whole opinion on this because he's such a.
Well, see, that is
asshole.
the thing. Is
and I
it's
get
like,
that he is if you.
And I
he was
mean,
the
Jesus
wrong
Christ,
I
black
call that guy a Tom, but that's not strong enough.
But I mean, and then we also have like Condoleezza Rice during the
Sarah
the
Palin.
Bush administration. Was Sarah Palin wasn't a
No,
black?
she wasn't, but she was running.
she was-
to be
she was
president,
female,
and
yeah.
People were like, "See, we support women."
Right.
I get
Actually,
that
it really
happens,
is.
and
It
then it's-
really is something how the Republicans have like.
One of the biggest stars of their party, what fucking Candace Owens? Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
she's evil as fuck.
Like she's the one that's like basically
People,
like.
Republicans like her because they can go,
yeah.
"Look, I do listen to black."
And
women.
she'll tell you,
I listen to
and
her."
Candace Owens will sit there and tell you like how well like the left are the real racists and do all those mental gymnastics and shit that those stupid fucking people just eat up. And I'm like, holy fucking shit!
They
Like
eat it up because it makes them feel less racist because they
Yes.
can point and say, "No, I don't."
like
I'm
being
not
nice to the black
racist."
guy at work.
Yeah, I listen to Candace Owens. She's a black woman. I mean, of course, I can't be racist. I
Well,
think,
yeah, I'm not racist because Clarence Thomas is my favorite Supreme Court justice.
exactly. See, the Republicans aren't. They nominated a black dude.
No, like, and their record on it, at least at a national level, is way better than the Democrats have been as far as like, I mean, Condoleezza Rice was what was she, the Secretary of
Secretary
State or Defense?
Defense.
And
I
then
think defense.
yeah. Anyway, so we should just kind of list them all wrong, but
Yeah.
I mean it's really something. But yeah, I think if there was like okay, this is the way it's got to be, and pass a law or whatever, that's one thing. But for the president of the United States to declare, I'm only going to consider black female candidates for that, I feel like A, it's wrong. B, it's a horrible strategy. Like it gives you, it makes you look bad.
You know who the most reliable voters are, though? For the Democratic Party, not for the Republicans. For the Democratic Party. Fucking black women show up to vote.
I'm not saying
They
that they
show up
that
to
he.
vote.
I'm not saying that he
So-
shouldn't put a black. Appoint a black woman.
No, I'm saying as a strategy, even saying it, there are a lot of black women that hear that and are happy that he is going to do that because they want to see some representation of themselves.
I see.
And they
I
vote.
feel like the vast majority of voters. Well, actually, I shouldn't even say voters because it's like the vast majority of potential voters don't even fucking vote.
No, they don't.
And
But black women do.
Right, but
They show up in numbers.
but I
If they
think
can afford identification
True.
and
Yep.
and drive to polling places and shit.
And if the
And-
president doesn't learn their name and start blasting it all
but I
over
think we're the
Twitter.
40%. Like I think it's the 40%
Yeah.
of the vast majority of voters, and then there's 20% that are like the I don't want to say far left, but the super blue. They're always going to vote Democrat.
Yeah.
The whatever. And then
Reliable.
there's the whole same thing on the other side. The difference between the right and the left is that 40% is on the left is far more likely to either not vote or to like vote for an independent or to even vote for a fucking Republican because they don't like the candidate. On the right, you got 20% that are rabid, Trumpistans, right?
Yep.
And then the other 40% are still going to vote for the conservative
Yep.
candidate because I'm not going to vote for a fucking lefty. But so I think that's what we were talking about before about nuance. It's just that the left is never going to be
It's like herding cats.
it's like herding cats. Yeah.
I
But-
mean, it's
you
I
can't even
think-
get us excited like.
and I think that's a good thing. It just makes it hard.
it makes it very hard.
It makes it hard to get things done. That said, I think there are some easy things that we can do to change that. I've talked about it almost any time we talk about politics, and really effective, easy things to do. number one is runoff or is ranked choice voting, right?
For sure.
Number two is gerrymandering.
Yes.
Number three is taking money out of politics, and you can't do that unless you pass 1 and 2.
Yep.
Gerrymandering and voter suppression, that shit happens,
Voter
especially
suppression is-
especially by the people that were so fucking concerned about voter fraud.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah,
Only if it's their people who
Exactly.
aren't allowed to vote.
And who really does that shit? Like we all, like if you're a fucking grown up, you know how that works.
Voter fraud
is not a real thing.
Problem.
Yeah.
yeah. There definitely was voter fraud.
But voter suppression,
Well, that's
and fucking
voter fraud, too.
gerrymandering and shit.
Voter suppression is, I was years and when I had my first child, so 18 years ago, I volunteered as an election judge in Brainerd during the Bush-Kerry election, so 2004.
Boring. That was a boring. That was a boring election. Yeah.
It was, but we really wanted George Bush to go the fuck away so much that we voted for John Kerry.
Right. Well, that's the same thing that happened in
but
this election.
My point is that I did the training and I went to be an election judge. I loved it. I found it inspiring. I put all my energy into it. Our voting system is very good, especially in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Like the opportunity for voter fraud really doesn't. We do a really fucking good job in Minnesota.
We don't have any
making sure that
hanging
there's-
chads or anything like that.
And funny story, I actually ended up volunteering at the polling place that my brother voted at. So it wasn't my polling place. They actually send an equal number of Democrats and Republicans to be election judges at polling locations. So they ask you ahead of time what your party affiliation is and they make sure that there are an equal number at each polling location, but you're not supposed to talk about it with the other volunteers. So you're not really sure which ones are the Republicans and which ones are the Democrats.
And when you showed up, everybody was like,
you just
she's
guess.
a lib.
I mean, they could tell with me. It was obvious. But so my brother shows up to vote at that polling location on that day. And a thing I did not realize about voting before is that if you write in candidates, the election judges who are volunteering there have to rewrite every single handwritten candidate onto a separate form because you have to not only count all the votes until all the math comes out correctly, and there's tons of, at the end of the day, bookkeeping involved with how many ballots did you feed into the machine versus how many did the machine tell you there were versus how many people signed the logbook. But you also have a separate sheet of paper where you just have to write down the write-in candidates. And that ended up being my job at the end of the day somehow. I found my brother's ballot because I know his handwriting, and he nominated me to be a judge in Crow Wing County. And I had to sit at 10 o'clock at night at the end of the day when I had a baby at home. Like I had been there since 6 a.m. registering people to vote. And he wrote somebody in for every fucking election.
That's awesome.
Except, he voted correctly on the big ones. But once it got to like the judges, the ones nobody,
right.
He wrote me in, he wrote my husband in, he wrote Bob Dylan. That mother, never do that when you vote.
Okay, so my friend Arlene Jones was running against Paul Coring, and she was as a write-in candidate.
Yes.
And I was really excited, helped her campaign, and then I realized that I couldn't vote for her because she wasn't in my district or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I wrote her in for everything. Yeah, and then I posted on Facebook. I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I couldn't vote for you. But if you become the sanitation commissioner for Crow Wing County, that's because of me."
Yeah, it wouldn't have even made me as angry if I didn't know for a fact it was my brother.
Well, that he nominated you, and you were like, "I don't even want to be a judge.
I don't want to be a judge. That's a shitty job, man. Nominate me for something." Yeah.
Sanitation commissioner would have been great.
Arlene is somebody who absolutely deserves to be in charge of just about anything.
I love Arlene too. And I think that she's I think that she's thinking that she might take an actual stab at it this next time because that was such a late
she entered it so
as
late
a write-in candidate, and she did really well.
Needs to fucking go.
Yeah, but see, there you go again. There's another example of like diversity in the Republicans.
Yeah, I don't understand how. God, God, I feel like I'm getting too local, too personal here, but I don't understand.
Well, we
how
are
doesn't
from
make any
Brainerd.
fucking
I know.
sense.
I don't usually have to worry about that on my show. It doesn't make any sense to me how your entire party can throw you under the fucking bus,
Hate you,
down to the core
and not
of
just
who you
like
are.
not just like look at you funny, but like
Hate you, and
legislate against you.
they're the ones that outed him, if I remember correctly.
Oh no, it was the Dems.
Was it?
Yeah.
I thought it was the Republicans
No,
that saw. Okay,
it was they
at
were
any
trying to
rate.
get him. They were trying to get him to vote against something. They were like, if you don't like whatever, and then the Republicans were like, we knew he was gay, and like to this day, like you talk to people who are Paul Coring supporters, they're super conservative and think gay people are going to hell and whatever, and but well, Paul's okay because he's our gay guy.
No,
and it's
he's
like,
not.
weird. Yeah.
No, he's not.
Well, he's
No.
definitely their gay
Not
guy.
my gay
I
guy.
don't want him.
That's the thing about being a Republican, though.
No.
The shit you say, the shit you think, like you don't have to make sense.
True.
I mean,
You don't
we're
have to
really
be
like burdened
intellectually
by
consistent.
reality and shit. Like, and reality is a burden because it looks so fun to be them, really, because it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Like their beliefs are, the shit they believe in is fucking ridiculous and hateful. And I have a hard time reconciling that with like, because I've got like my family, my friends, all this shit, and I'm like, look at this guy, fucking wonderful person, great human being. But you want to do what? Like, you want to, like, you don't want gay people to be married and shit like that, like stuff that like I really have a hard time imagining. People got mad at me before because I'm like, listen, I'm like, if you are against like two grown people being married, like, what the fuck? Like, you're
Well,
you're
who
obviously a
gives a
fucking
shit?
awful person. You're a
Well,
piece of
I'm
shit.
against it.
Like,
But I mean, just
why-
all.
but you're
about
just
all
against
people
you're just
getting
against
married.
marriage.
Yeah.
I can get on board with that. I think we should raise the marriage age to 35 at
Ooh,
least.
actually, really not a bad idea.
I agree. Because
Solid.
getting married when you're in your early 20s, you're not even a fully formed human yet. It's a bad time to make that decision. But yeah, the idea that the biggest menace to society is gay people, I can't take somebody serious.
I mean, if they were all
believes
like
that.
Paul Coring,
But
Paul Coring, if you want a Paul Coring story, he is my commissioner because I live in Arlene's. I live pretty close to Arlene. But several years ago, there was an issue with the public health department handing out condoms. And I don't know if you recall this event, but I fucking do.
I kind of remember that.
So the county administrator, Tim Hool, found out that the public health department was handing out condoms as part of its postnatal checkups for women.
Okay,
so
okay.
when they would go check up on women who had just given birth, they would give them a package of information and some, I don't know, maybe, I have no idea, but they included condoms in that. And they were getting the condoms for free from the state of Minnesota as part of a program to prevent pregnancy. And it was all above board. It's what public health departments do. So Tim Hool found out about it somehow and put a stop to it and was just like, no, we are not going to fucking hand out condoms. This is not happening. I heard about it from a few friends who worked there, but were like, I can't say anything about this because I
and
work
what's
here.
the reasoning behind that?
Because you don't want women to be whores, Kyle.
Oh.
There
Wait,
was no reasoning.
I find that
There was
offensive.
no reasoning.
Because why wouldn't I want women to be whores?
Right? Well, and the thing is, these weren't even
This
like.
makes no fucking sense.
We're talking about women that we're not talking about
these
women
are
that
already whores. I'm just saying they'd already had a baby.
yeah, we're not even talking about women
No.
that like
That was
that
the thing.
haven't had a baby yet.
It
We're
wasn't
talking about
even-
women that have had a baby and maybe
Yes.
don't want to get pregnant right away again.
We weren't even talking about teenagers or high school. This was women solely going to women who had had babies, and
Right.
he was like, "Fuck that, we're not doing
No,
it." So
because God
I-
told us
yeah.
that
that's bad.
You you
So-
can't spill your seed on the ground. You don't pull out, you fucking dick. And you got to go forward, multiply.
Yeah.
Go forward and multiply.
So
Be fruitful,
me
whatever that
being
is.
and
the
keep your
loud-
hands off yourself.
The loudmouth that I am could not help myself. I had to show up at the next county board meeting with a couple of my friends where we're like, we're going to show up at this meeting and say something because this is fucked. So I got it. Nothing happens in Brainerd, and it was a slow news day, so I ended up on the front page of the paper as local woman.
Oh.
Local woman confronts board about condoms. My parents were very proud. But Paul Coring was there, and I basically just got up and said, this is ridiculous. Why are you not allowing condoms to be handed out for the use they are intended? They decided they needed to schedule a separate hearing to discuss it, because of course they did. So then the next meeting that they had, all the right-wingers got their group together to show up, and the Heinzmans were there crying about giving condoms away like candy to children.
And they don't even taste good.
Right. But
they're healthier.
Ahead of time, we had, just in networking with people and talking, we were pretty sure that Coring was going to vote to reinstate handing out condoms. Like, that was going to be his, as far as I knew, he was going to be that vote. We thought we had enough votes to fix this. But at the end of that hearing, after watching all these people walk up crying about, we can't give women condoms, and Doug Kern made a lovely appearance and talked about postpartum. I can't even. It was so terrible. But
Doug
anyway,
Kern, is that
the brother of
our beloved
brother and wife
of
Sue Kern.
Is it brother? Oh, you're making a joke. I thought you were serious. I was down.
He's known for wearing bags on his head at school board meetings.
So we're just to be clear. So that's Sue Kern's husband.
Yes.
And Sue Kern is the crazy bitch that was on the school board that said we should no longer teach evolution
right.
because it's a theory.
And wanted to give like equal time to create creation myths or whatever. Not creation myths overall, but her favorite creation.
Well,
myth,
she also really
apparently
hates comprehensive sex ed, so just putting that out there. But the point of all of this is that Coring, at the end of the hearing, voted no. He was like, no, we need to not hand condoms out. And I was so fucking enraged that I called him on the phone. And I think that day later, I called him, because he's my commissioner. And I said, I would like to set up a meeting with you so we can talk about this, because I'm very unhappy with how you voted, and here's why. And can we sit down and have I didn't sound as scary as I sound right now. I just said, could we meet and have coffee and talk about this? Because I have concerns. And he just kept saying, well, just tell me what you want to tell me now on the phone. And I'm like, well, I'd feel better if we could just have an in-person conversation. It's a lot. Well, just tell me what you want to tell me now.
You really should have just had your husband call him.
It probably would have worked better, and my husband is much better at yelling at people than I am.
Oh, no. But he just would have met him.
The frustrating...
maybe he could have got laid.
True. He is very cute. My husband has stayed the same size since we got married. And
Paul...
Yeah. So, are we talking about pulling the honey pot?
Yeah.
Or in this case, the honey dick?
The husband pot. Anyway, I got Paul Coring to admit to me that he knew
the
the scientifically sound thing to do was to hand out condoms. That all the evidence suggested that handing out the condoms was the right thing to do. That there was a right thing to do and a wrong thing to do, and he did the wrong fucking thing, and he knows it. And I got him to admit that he knew that the smarter thing would be to hand out the condoms, but he was afraid because of the Doug Kerns and the other constituents that showed up and yelled, and that scared him, so he didn't do it. And that alone, I was so fucking mad that he knew it the right thing to do.
Sometimes you need a great coward to lead you through the trying times.
I was just like, you're better than that. I know that you are smart enough to know that the right thing to do is just to hand out the condoms. I know you know that. And he did know that.
But if you're a half-ass smart Republican, you've got to get pretty comfortable with doing the wrong thing.
I don't even think Paul's dumb. I don't think Paul's dumb. I think he truly is just
enraging.
He's just a...
he panders.
A pander, 100% a pander.
Well, I mean, he's not dumb. He's charming, like all the things.
He's
a nice guy.
I don't even think he even is a Republican. He just not in many of his political beliefs, but he doesn't really have political beliefs.
He hates.
He does whatever it makes sense for whatever. But we never talked about abortion. But we talked a lot about gay. We talked a lot about gay marriage back in the day. We Paul and I had never talked about abortion. We talked a lot about gay marriage.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Well, of course I'm for gay marriage." But
I went
we'll
to
just keep it on the DL.
Pro-Choice Lobby Day years ago when he was my representative. I went down for Pro-Choice Lobby Day, and a couple of us met with Paul Goring and brought him some buttons that said, "I heart pro-choice boys." We had different ones. We had "I heart pro-choice girls" and "I heart pro-choice boys," and we were handing them out. But we brought one for him that said, "I heart," and he laughed, and he was like, fun, and he talked to us, and he was very nice, and he listened to what we had to say. And in the end, he told us that he gets all of his advice on abortion from the woman in Little Falls who writes the crazy letters to the paper about killing babies. And that's all he needed to know about abortion.
I actually don't. I think part of the whole problem with the abortion issue is just, it's really the wording. Like, I feel like pro-choice is just a really shitty. I think we should just be pro-abortion.
I mean, it's been argued. A lot of people now are using pro.
Can I be pro-baby killing?
I am.
I'm for mandated abortions.
We need to get that
on demand. Not just
Fair.
abortions on demand. We need mandated abortions
Fair.
across the board for everybody.
Human dated
35.
abortions. Let's not be.
I mean,
sexist.
for a long time, pro-choice activists were concerned because pro-abortion isn't the look they wanted to put out. They didn't want people to think
I get it.
abortions, right?
No, but I am for abortions.
I am too.
Like, I think it's like a little bit intellectually dishonest to be like, I'm pro-choice. I mean, to say I'm not pro-choice is like ridiculous. Like, because it's like, what do you mean you're not pro-choice? Like, you have to be for people making choices, any choice.
Well, yeah. I mean, even the pro-lifers are pro-choice. I mean, they're pro their choice to keep other people from doing what they want with their own bodies.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it's semantics, and because they're called the pro-life movement, we let them take over that wording.
The labeling is tough on that one.
So much semantics
horrible
that has gone around. The current verbiage that we've been trying to use is pro-forced birth instead of pro-life.
Oh, yeah,
because as we know, they don't give
a
a fuck about life.
They just want you to be forced to give birth. It's pro-forced birth. They don't give a fuck about that baby when it's here. They really don't give a fuck about it when it's in the womb. Even.
And that is the part that bugs me more than anything about the whole idea of being pro-life. Is that, like, and it's not all Republicans. It's not all people that are pro-life, but most of the people who are pro-life. No, actually, it's not though. I know a lot of religious, like especially Catholic Democrats that are still totally pro-life, but everything else across the board they're socially liberal, except for the pro.
The abortion
and I'm fine with that. And for the most part, well, I don't know if I'm fine with that, but I'm fine with. But for the most part, they are all like, I would never get an abortion. I would never want anybody in my family to get an abortion. But whatever. But they're still for a social safety net.
But that's pro-choice.
But the thing that really drives, but they don't want they want the law to not allow it to. But
then they're not pro-choice.
But the vast majority of people that are pro-life would not support social programs.
Oh God, no.
That would create a safety net for those fucking unwanted babies.
It's not,
and
really
that is
about
a ridiculous thing. Yeah, so
it's not really about the babies. It's about punishing women for being slutty.
Well,
and
I think that I mean, maybe
really,
that's what choking is for.
Yeah, it's. I mean, when you hear people talk about abortion and they say, women should have to face the consequences of their actions, or maybe they just shouldn't have had. Like, the wording around it really does imply that a lot of it's about punishing us if we have sex and happen to get pregnant. The men don't get punished. They don't get punished by forced fatherhood.
Keep your legs crossed.
Just don't have sex, which ignores all the people who are raped. Which, whatever.
Right.
I prefer an intellectually consistent Republican who does not allow for exceptions, because at least that's
a little more honest.
That's honest. If you believe that abortion is murder, then it's murder no matter how that conception happened. So
I never thought about that, but
I hate it when Democrats and liberals, we need to stop using the language that we think abortion should be, rare, or that we should always have exceptions for this or for that. No, women should have access to abortions for any fucking goddamn reason they want.
I caught myself doing that.
And I don't give a fuck what the reason is.
Because I was like, somebody...
We're playing into their game.
Well, that's where I found myself when a Facebook friend of mine was like, well, there's got to be some middle ground here. And I'm like, well, maybe the middle ground is like, like late-term abortion or whatever. But then I thought about it, and then I backed up and I'm like, you know what? Like, we don't need to fucking legislate that either. No. Because I don't think people get fucking late-term abortions for funsies, you know.
They don't.
And then, of course, I was having this conversation on Facebook, so I had that idiot fucking...
Are you kidding? Yeah. Women get abortions for funsies. Right? Of course they do.
I have a punch card that I try to... Every time I go, I get one.
Yeah.
And they're super fun.
You ever get turned away because they're like, hey, you don't even need one, you're not pregnant. And you're like, God, can I just fucking... Like, come on, punch my card.
You're going through menopause. You don't... But I used to work at Planned Parenthood in town here years ago, back in the George W. Bush years.
The pre-bombing?
No, post-bombing.
Post-bombing?
But
so
during the shooting.
People maybe don't
the
even...
4th of July shooting. I worked there then.
You did? Okay. All I remember is that...
No, it got firebombed in 1995. I was a patient there at that time. And then it got...
Oh, and they used to do those painful chlamydia checks there. Jesus, with the swab.
So
Holy
when
shit.
it got bombed, I got interviewed by an FBI agent.
Did you do it?
No.
I would love to solve this case right now.
It was actually, I was managing a telemarketing center at the time, and I had to answer questions about an employee who also didn't do it and was completely exonerated. But it was really, it was, I mean, like, I'm like,
I don't think anyone looked that hard, but that's just my opinion.
He was like a pot head, and I'm like the wrong demographic.
Yeah.
Right.
I wouldn't.
You're like, no.
It wasn't a pothead.
He's into bongs.
Yeah.
Bongs.
Yeah.
No. Potheads don't.
But
clinics.
I was like, it was really interesting to sit down with this FBI agent and like, I mean, he like. It's really cool because I mean he gave me his credentials and I was like it was kind of cool.
Yeah. No, when that happened I was a patient there because I had a mother
during the bombing.
Not while it happened. At the time that it happened, I had to go to the alternate location to get my exam because the building was closed down and they had to go use a different building and I had to. So I vividly remember that happening.
Yeah.
And my mom was a teenager when she got pregnant. And when I became a teenager, she was very open about telling me, you should go to Planned Parenthood if you need to, back when we still had a Planned Parenthood in town. And it was great. But then I started working there. And when I worked there, there was a shooting on the 4th of July. Somebody, I can't remember, it must have been 2002-ish, maybe. And somebody had driven by in the middle of the night and just shot a weapon into the windows, broke all the windows, and
it was. And somebody shot up the dispatch around the same time period
I don't remember that. Well, I remember being. I remember a couple
Welcome
of things.
to Brainerd.
My husband at the time, because we got married in 2001, so this must have been 2002, really wanted me to get a handgun when that happened. He wanted me to start carrying a handgun to work, and my boss at Planned Parenthood did conceal carry. She carried a handgun because our jobs, specifically my job and my boss's job, were regional jobs. We traveled a lot to the other Planned Parenthood clinics, which meant we were going through small towns that didn't like Planned Parenthood. And I had to convince my husband there is no way I'm getting a handgun. I have no interest in doing that. It's not going to protect me anyway. If somebody's going to come and shoot at us, they're going to just come and shoot at us. Me having a gun in my purse down the hall, or even me, no, I'm not going to risk shooting a patient. I'm not going to, what's going to happen is I don't feel like I am going to be any safer, so I am not going to do that. The people who want to do that can do that. But I was also...
You haven't watched enough action movies.
True, yeah, no. I know myself well enough to know I would just freeze.
See, I think that's very responsible.
I think you need to be well-trained if you're going to carry a weapon.
Yes.
I'm not against carrying weapons, but you need to fucking know what you're doing. And I am not interested in putting in the time involved in getting comfortable with a weapon.
It drives me crazy.
It's just not...
when you talk, people, like I'm very pro-gun, like that. I guess let's just say that. like, you know, I always say I'm a gun-toting liberal, but I am not, like, I think getting a license to carry a concealed gun should be on the level of getting a pilot's license, or even just a license for a car. You need to really be trained, and not just. I mean, I have my concealed carry. It was about a 6-hour day, and most of it was fucking around and whatever. Now, I have done a lot of training, not a ton, but a fair amount of training with a gun, and I don't feel comfortable carrying concealed because I don't feel like I have enough training to do it. Now, I do now and again, depending on what I'm doing, but mostly it's like I'm going to go to the shooting range. Like, I don't have to have my gun locked in my in a box, whatever, because I have my concealed carry. But yeah, it's a humongous responsibility to carry on a daily basis, and I'm not that responsible.
Me neither.
I am not even responsible enough to lock my fucking car.
No.
So, like, come on, like.
I lose my phone all day long. There's
right.
No way The thing about terrorists who like to terrorize abortion providers, which Planned Parenthood and Brainerd never provided abortions.
Right.
They were not an abortion provider. To my knowledge, Brainerd has never had an abortion clinic ever.
Crying shame.
But, yeah, the Planned Parenthood here that didn't stop people from attacking us. And when that happened, part of my job was that I would kind of come and go from the clinic because I would travel to other clinics. So I would go to the Alexandria clinic a lot and kind of fill in for the manager when she was gone. And sometimes that required me to come back late at night. I would get into the building. I knew the security code. I would go back to my desk. I would put some things away. I would leave and go home. So I was there at off hours. You wouldn't necessarily know I was there because I wouldn't turn the lights on. I would just go in, leave my shit at my desk. So there was a very real chance that when that person came in the middle of the night, I could have been walking down that hallway when that person shot down that hallway. And I remember being so angry that nobody cared that much because they just said, well, it's just vandalism.
And
nobody was there. It's just, I could have fucking died because somebody did that.
I have a vague memory of it, but only a vague memory of it.
Yeah, the cops didn't put much effort into figuring out
I don't
who
even
did
know
it.
if I would have I don't even have a really clear memory of the bombing, other than the fact that I remember clearly the FBI agent coming and talking to me, because that was like a very...
Well, yeah, and if I hadn't been a patient there at the time, I don't know if I would, but I remember I was a teenager, and that's...
Isn't it strange that right-wingers still argue about what side domestic terrorism comes from? Like who commits, like, the vast majority of domestic terrorism. They will fucking fight tooth and nail. They'll argue, like, till they are fucking, like...
Ask the dead abortion doctors.
It's so fucking ridiculous, and you can show, well, of course, and then the right-wingers, so you can show them, you can present the evidence to them.
Doesn't matter.
And once they get, like...
You're trying to use facts and evidence to, like...
to sway right-wingers.
Or to sway, like...
But one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
Absolutely.
If you believe abortion is murder, then you don't think that person's a terrorist. You think they're fighting for... If you want to see a terrifying documentary, go find, I think it's called Army of God. It was on HBO back in the 90s. That is fucking terrible. It's all about this very small culty group whose job they just want to kill abortion doctors. And I watched that and was just like, I guess I'm going to be dead now watching these people, because they were hardcore, and they knew who they were coming for, and they had lists of the doctors, and they weren't just going to kill the doctors, they were going to kill anybody who worked for the clinic, like the people who did the books or scheduled appointments, or like they weren't limited to killing doctors, they wanted to kill anybody involved in it. I remember loving that job so much because I found it rewarding, and I felt like I was doing something valuable, but I also felt very
all the stem cells you could take home.
Yeah,
all of them. Yeah, all the chlamydia tests for free.
Oh,
I find it like so. Yeah, honestly, I can't quite get my mind around it. Well, yeah, but about the, like, why do people think? Why are people so avid against somebody having an abortion? And like, people who are like literally have a list of doctors to kill. They're not. That's not because they don't want women to be. They want women not to be whores. Like that has to be.
Well, they hate
that has
women.
to be religious.
A big part of it is religious. Oh, it's
Yeah, it's a
absolutely
religious thing.
It's a religious
Which
thing.
is weird because now I'm not a Bible scholar,
I don't
biblical
know.
scholar or anything.
John Carlson
but
posted a really good.
there's abortion in the Bible.
Yeah, a really good
There's
quote.
not
I mean,
abortion
there's
in the
always
Bible.
been abortion, like
Women, so
in every like traditional culture and shit. Like we've
History.
always had abortion.
History of abortion 101. Most cultures, including Christian ones, have always been fine with abortion up to about 4 or 5 months, which is when the quickening happens. We don't use that term anymore.
I'm much Highlander. I know what the quickening is.
But the quickening is when you could feel the baby start moving, and most cultures.
Is that when there's twins and then one twin eats the other twin because there
Yes.
can be only one?
I have twin nieces,
Something
and
like
they
that.
are constantly. Yeah, so throughout time, abortion has not been the controversial subject that it is now.
Right.
It was something that is just assumed. It was something women took care of. The midwives took care of it. I have this book that my friend Andy mailed me, and it's all about herbal remedies for abortion and learning how to. He wants to grow an abortion garden. I think that'd be fantastic.
I like that idea.
But it's always been around. It did not become controversial until the late 1800s in America, and what was happening at that time was a lot of dirty immigrants were coming here from other countries.
Fucking immigrants.
Like the Catholic Irish.
Ugh, the Irish.
The goddamn Irish were having more babies than we were.
They breed
and
like rats.
They breed like rats, and so our good white American women needed to have more babies. So we
Really?
can't be having abortions because we need. So that's when it started turning up as an issue. It didn't kick into full gear until the 60s when the religious right just decided this would be a great issue to get people voting on. If they could get them
But
angry about
it wasn't legal.
It wasn't addressed, really.
It was-
in the law.
Yeah, it was like a
wasn't
personal
addressed.
health
Okay, so
issue.
it wasn't.
like-
It wasn't illegal.
Nobody thought
Like a
enough
personal
about
medical
it.
thing?
to
So
make-
when
yeah, it was
when
just-
did performing an abortion become illegal in the United States? Do we even know?
I think, God, I read a whole book on this once. I want to say in the early 1900s is when
Okay.
it really started.
So probably like around the 20s, maybe, because
Yeah.
that seems like it could be part of that whole
well,
like
the Comstock
prohibition
laws,
and
not even prohibition, but there were the Comstock laws, which there's a Google
I don't
that.
even know what that is.
Comstock was the postmaster general, and he made it so that you couldn't send obscene material through the mail, and obscene material was whatever he thought it was.
Yeah.
And it ended up being information about birth control.
Okay.
And that's, I think, when people started paying more attention to
Well,
it.
yeah, and then what was
As an
what was
issue?
the issue? What was the group in the 20s that like got prohibition passed? It was a big.
It was women.
Yeah, it was all. Yeah, it was. It was a big
Yep.
Puritanish type movement.
Kind of, but the interesting thing about prohibition is it was
the temperance movement.
The
Temperance,
the
thank you.
temperance movement, yes. They gave women the right to vote, and then we immediately outlawed alcohol. But here is why.
Is that true?
Kind
because-
of.
Sons of bitches.
Men were
Clearly their
beating
husbands
their
did not tell
fucking
them,
women constantly. It was a huge problem that men would go to. I mean, life sucked back then, so men would go to these horrible factory jobs, get off work, go to the pub, drink all fucking
I
night,
didn't
come home
know
and beat
that,
their
though.
wives. Oh yeah.
Well,
Come
that
back home
doesn't
and beat
happen
their
anymore.
Wives and beat their children. Yeah.
Likely
it was
story,
an
Amy.
epidemic problem back then.
So the temperance movement,
So the temperance movement started as
the women's
the
suffrage.
women's kinda, yeah. And women said if we can get the right to vote, we can outlaw the demon rum that is making our husbands come home and beat us, which was an actual fucking issue. There was a ton of domestic violence.
There still is. It's not
obvious,
like
yeah. No, it hasn't-
prohibition. Prohibition
Let me
is
just
like
say the
any.
scale has got. Oh yeah, prohibition did nothing to help it.
No,
it was
yeah.
totally misguided.
Prohibition, like I can understand why
It was bad.
people in that movement may have been women who finally get the right to vote, and they're
Yes.
like, let's take their booze away. But like any prohibition on anything,
It doesn't work.
Well, it well, it's not even that it doesn't work. It just makes the profit go to the criminal element. So if you have a prohibition on anything, the only people when you relieve prohibition, the people that it hurts are criminals.
Right.
You think
When
there was like dudes like sitting around like Like, what do you miss about drinking the most? Well, I'll tell you, I'm really sick of beating my wife sober. Fucking, like, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
I never even thought about it. I never made the connection.
I didn't
Of course I
realize
wouldn't
that till
because
recently.
I'm really sick of beating my wife sober.
They don't teach you this kind of stuff until you go, until you become an adult and want to learn more about history, and then you start.
This is probably in like a chapter of like Howard Zinn's History of the United States that I like skimmed over
book,
or something.
Yeah. I also skimmed it briefly in college.
God damn it.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to prohibition and the temperance movement and women voting, but guess what happens when you make abortion illegal?
Well, I know that. Well, actually, I don't know.
Because abortion still happens. Women,
right.
People are always going to try to not be pregnant if they're pregnant. It's just always going to happen.
Right.
If it's not something that a doctor can do in a safe environment, it's something that they are going to have to figure out how to do on their own.
Right.
And women used to end up dead routinely before Roe versus Wade.
And another thing that's going to happen, and this is what I think the true tragedy is there's going to just be a lot more babies that are born that are unwanted.
Absolutely.
And that's
a horrible way to grow up.
That's where Republicans come from.
And I feel like the tragedy of it is, like, yes, many women are going to die because of the overturn of Roe versus Wade, because they're going to have backyard abortions and whatever. And yep, that's sad. But the real tragedy is children that are going to be unborn and unwanted, because that has like ongoing systemic cost to it. Absolutely. Financial cost, because those unwanted little fuckers are going to have to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, but also like just other
poverty and crime.
Right.
Well, and keep in mind, like, what costs a fortune that we love to do here in the United States?
Put people in jail?
Prison. And what is prison full of? Unwanted babies.
Jesus Christ. Do you think that overturning Roe versus Wade is part of the prison industrial complex fucking?
Well, yeah, that, and I mean anything that makes people, like, when you're like the party that likes to make your first cuts are in education and shit, and you just want lots of like fucking loud stupid voters. I mean, like, of course their base is going to grow. Because when you make huge cuts to education, when your education system is subpar, well, I mean, let's face it. Like, how many of your like what's the breakdown of your like Republican friends and your like and your right wing friends and your left wing friends? Who are the more educated ones, and who are the and of course everybody's going to point to some educated Republicans. We all know them.
But it has been studied, and by far, college-educated people tend to be liberal.
Yes.
It's just, we've studied this.
Or indoctrinated.
Yeah, they indoctrinate the children at the colleges.
I don't know.
The commies do.
I mean, I'm liberal, and I only done graduated the 8th grade, so I'm good.
No, I think it's just that especially coming from a small town, when you go to college, you growing up someplace like this didn't realize how many different cultures are out there and how much is going on out there. You haven't met people that aren't just like you.
For sure.
And I think that when you go to college and that starts happening and you make these new relationships and you start figuring out, there are people who don't look like me.
Anywhere where you can, in any way you can make friends with people with like backgrounds that different from your own.
Than yours. That, I think, is what leads people to be more liberal and to care more about people who aren't them or who don't look like them, because you start to know more people who aren't exactly like you and didn't grow up like you. And I think that's why urban areas are far more liberal, because they are forced to all coexist.
Right.
And they know lots of different types of people, so they aren't scared of everybody. We here are very scared of anybody who isn't just like us.
A very xenophobic existence.
We were in the first podcast where we had Ace Colley on, we were talking about race.
That was a good show.
Oh, thanks.
I watched that.
That's one of my favorite ones, actually.
Yeah, it was very good.
And we were talking about how, like, Kyle growing up in, small bumfuck town and having, him kind of his eyes being opened.
Yeah.
But I never had not to say that I've never done or said or been a bigoted, racist, whatever, but I've never felt that way. I've never had like, oh, black people are whatever.
Yeah.
But I think part of the reason is because I was born in Minneapolis and I lived till I was 4 in Minneapolis, and like it was actually St. Louis Park, but our street was just everybody. I mean, it was like, it was a truly ethnically diverse street. There was even a lady that kept getting arrested because she wouldn't wear a shirt. True story. But
that wouldn't happen in Brainerd.
And then after that, I went to small town now, But I never was like, oh, that's a black person. Like, it's just like, it
kids,
seemed.
To a certain extent, kids have to be taught how to hate other people. But I remember being a kid, I grew up in Brainerd. There were, in my graduating class, 2 black students, and that was it. I did not meet or engage with or talk to a black person until I was in college, until I was 19. And I didn't grow up in a family, my family was we talked a lot about racism and about how you treat people and how you don't treat people worse because of the color of their, in theory.
But those are just concepts
until you actually start to interact with people. And it skews so much about how we see the world, and if you never get out of this town and you never are in those other situations, it's easy to just look at entire groups of people and think that you know what they're like.
I agree with you that children kind of have to be taught to hate, but they don't have to be taught that different is scary. Right?
I think that's pretty ingrained.
I think it is ingrained.
I think that's ingrained. Yeah, you don't understand.
But that's like an animal,
exactly.
Very base,
Right.
So like when you're a little, if everybody around you is different, right? Then they aren't different.
Normal.
That's normal.
Yeah.
But if you grow up not having any interactions with people that are a different color than you, and then all of a sudden you have those interactions, even if you've been taught your whole life that people are people, whatever, they're still different. So there's still those things. So I always thought it was just interesting because I've never felt like people of a different race are any different at all. They're just like every person is different, and so it's always been an interesting thing. And I've never been able to quite get my mind around feeling that way.
I mean, a lot of there are cultural differences.
But those are cultural.
But they're cultural, and I don't know.
And those should be I don't know. Those are the ones that you I feel like should be celebrated, and you should be able to tell jokes about, because that's a cultural thing. It's not. It doesn't.'t demeaning someone because of their because of their birth. Because of their race.
And I mean, people from Finland have an accent. I mean, it's just a purely thing. But people from Finland are just from Finland, so it's like
stupid Finns.
Oh, fucking Finns. Actually, I
actually love Finland. They have the best
Really?
public school system and the best maternals. In Finland, if you become pregnant, the government mails you an entire box full of shit for your baby.
Coat hangers.
Yeah, well, that's what Texas does now. No, they mail you and the box is like a cradle. The government sets you up.
Really? Huh.
Because they actually give a shit about babies and about women and whatever, unlike America. No.
Why do they do that? I mean, why do they give a shit about women and babies and stuff?
I know,
why would
right?
that be? Do they think that?
Do you think
do they feel like in
that's
some way
helpful
that's
to society at all?
Yeah, I was gonna say, does that somehow help your society?
I don't know. I feel like maybe healthier, happier,
right?
well-adjusted citizens.
What if that gives people the idea that they are worthwhile?
I mean, you don't want that. Then how do you fill up prisons?
It's a dangerous precedent. It's a slippery slope.
I gotta chew on the whole prison industrial complex thing, because I wonder how connected that is.
Listen,
because
to me,
it makes no sense to me from a fiscally conservative perspective to be.
Oh, there's nothing fiscally conservative about this whole. This is just for your straight up nut job fucking social conservatives. Because let's face it, if you're as a social conservative, you're a nut job.
Close to half of the country believes that the right? This is right.
I don't. Is it close to the?
I think it's
close
to half the country
I thought it was a lunatic minority.
That believes
that Roe versus Wade should be overturned.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's a majority of people believe that Roe versus Wade should be in place. A majority of people in America believe you should have the right to an abortion, at least in the first
Yeah, because I get the
Do we
impression that
know-
maybe like 20-25% tops.
I really got to pee, so let's take a quick break and let's actually. I want to look that stat up because I want to know how much that is.
Yeah, I don't have the exact stat, but I know it's something around 78%
Well, I
of
carry around this
Americans.
thing
Is it
that it's an
does it look
oracle.
like mine?
No,
Magical.
it is yours. Can you shake yours and the light turns on? Well, then it's nothing like mine.
But I can throw it when I'm angry and it makes me feel better.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break.
Like
We'll be right
Naomi
back.
Campbell or whatever.
Welcome back to Spitballing, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Matt Taylor here with my good buddy,
Kyle Amundsen.
and we have Amy with a Y in the house
Hello.
today. So on our break, I did look it up. Apparently, just recently, the Gallup poll says that 55% of Americans are now pro-choice.
That's it?
That's what it said. Yeah.
Yeah,
Really?
but what does it say? The percentage of people that are
It didn't say the percentage of people that identified as pro-life, but it did say that 38% of people polled said that they were morally opposed to abortion.
Did it break it down by trimester at all?
No,
Okay.
no, I think it was just a regular. But that gives you a general idea. So, but even 38% of people
are morally opposed
to abortion is a humongous chunk of people.
Yeah, and how many of those? But I'm guessing most of those would probably be in favor of, like, turning over Roe versus Wade.
I would think,
But I
that
wouldn't say I wouldn't say all of them.
I would
but
say-
you would say the lion's share of them, probably 3/4 of them.
38% of Americans are probably in favor of overturning Roe
Well,
versus Wade.
I don't know, because if you got a chunk that says they're morally opposed to abortion, how many of those are morally opposed, but would not be comfortable making that choice for someone else?
I don't know. I didn't do the poll.
Yeah, there's
It's
a lot.
still
So, I
a
mean,
big chunk. But here's
yeah.
what drives me
Anyway,
crazy,
this
or kind of I can't quite get my mind around, is I don't think that, like, the abortion issue is considered a conservative issue. But to me, it's not a conservative.
Like a lot of things,
View.
the math isn't there for it to be a conservative issue.
Right.
You know?
It's not.
Just like healthcare.
Conservatives are for, in theory, limited government.
Right.
More freedom is always better. No government interference in your personal decisions. It should not be something that Republicans embrace, and they didn't used to. It used to be a conservative issue. When you look at when it started becoming legalized in states, it was Republicans who wanted to legalize it because they were for limited government. What happened was the fucking religious right found Ronald Reagan and figured out, how do we get this base of people who traditionally haven't shown up to the polls, all of these really diehard religious people, how do we get them to show up to vote? And this was the issue that did it. And it's been a great issue for them to fundraise on for years. I didn't think it would really get overturned because I just assumed they needed it for fundraising. And it was one of those issues that they would just keep being like, yeah, we're going to outlaw it, but they wouldn't because they know it's a great thing.
I honestly never thought I would see it.
I didn't either, but I'm not surprised that it's happened now that they've been working on it strategically for 40 years. I mean, if people are shocked, I don't know how they're shocked. It's Republicans for the last 20 years have been saying,
so
we're going to outlaw Roe versus
We've
Wade.
shit the bed.
Here's how we're going to do it.
Another weird thing that I've seen a lot on Facebook and stuff. A lot of young women that I know to be kind of conservative leaning. A lot of like a lot of Trumpers are now mad that this happened.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
You did this.
yes. But at the same time, that's when I'm like, okay, do I want to yell at them and be like, you did this? But then I have to keep in mind, like I said before, like we talked about before, we fucking did this too, by totally stepping on our dicks in
did
every fucking
this.
way and being like pussies about the Supreme Court justice thing. Like, no, you can't, we're not going to nominate it. We're not going to bring in a Supreme Court justice the last year of the Obama presidency.
No,
and 5 days
played
left
by
of the
rules
yeah.
for too long. We've let them not play by the rules while we tried to hold the moral high ground and be like, no, we're going to do things good. No, that hasn't won us anything. It's just fucked us even more.
Fuck the moral high ground. The view used to be nice from there, but now all you can see is fucking like dumpster fires and fucking garbage.
Trump getting elected happened because fucking listen, I believe in every Bernie Sanders position. I am a diehard, I am for free college. I'm for all of that shit. I basically think we should have a nanny state. I'm for all of that. However, that man was not going to get elected. Like it or not, Hillary Clinton was the chosen one. This is what party politics do. The party gets together and decides this is who our candidate is.
That's why we can never ever fix this. And we can never fix this because we have
the Nader effect.
Right. Yeah. Actually, I was like I said, I feel like when I sit down and talk to people, I have to like give them my voting record, and man, like I voted for Ralph Nader in
you did that.
Yeah, exactly. Learned my lesson, right? Never take a chance. And at the time, I remember thinking there really was no difference between Al Gore and George W. Bush. And then
in retrospect, I'm like, holy shit.
And then I'm driving in the car one day, not that long ago, during the Trump administration, and I'm listening to George Bush, like, be the voice of reason, and I'm like, oh my God,
how does that happen?
This is so strange. I'm in the fucking twilight zone here.
I remember.
So we cannot never make a change unless we are able to change the two-party system, and we cannot change a two-party. It's really easy. It starts with ranked choice voting, and we need to pass that at a local level. Brainerd City Council, ranked choice voting. County commissioners, ranked choice voting, and work its way up until ranked choice voting becomes the law of the land, and that's number one. And then we need to, but you need that first so that you can actually get decent politicians in, and then you can work on the gerrymandering and work on the money. And that's the way, the only change. I feel like it's the only way that change can be made. I also have gotten to the point, though, and it's kind of the same point where I've gotten on climate change, where I just don't think there are any actual solutions anymore.
Yeah, I
like,
think we're just
there are things that we could do, but I just don't think that there's ever going to be the will to do them. And for that reason, we're basically fucked.
We're just fucked. Yeah.
So it really doesn't matter.
That's why we watch. That's why we watch. The Road Warrior every day.
I feel all of this outrage from so many of my friends and all these women, and I feel like I went through that a long time ago, and I've, for 20 years, been begging people to show up to vote, even during midterms, even when it's not sexy, even when they didn't want to, even when it was inconvenient. Show up to vote anyway. I make sample ballots for my friends. If you're a friend of mine and you want to vote, but you're not sure who to vote for, but you trust my judgment, I will print out a sample ballot in your precinct and fill it out for you.
Just like the churches do.
Exactly.
Very good.
Again, the caveat being you have to trust my judgment.
Right. But I mean, that's something that churches do and say, here's your sample ballot.
Yes.
This is the way you should vote.
Except I have to pay taxes.
Right. Slight difference.
But no, I do. I have a lot of friends who don't follow politics closely, or it's just not something they're interested in, but they know they need to vote, but they haven't done research on who should I be voting for city council or for. I have a vast network of friends who I can go to and say, who do we think is a good person for this job and why, and who knows, especially with local stuff. So I will tell people, if you will please vote, I will get you. Just bring it with you, and it'll tell you who the good people to vote for. I've done that for relatives every election that comes.
What do you think of the idea that has never made any? No, it never got anywhere. But what about compulsory voting?
No, I've kicked that idea around because they, like in Australia where they do that, they have a high turnout, but I struggle with if I really want everybody to vote or not. There's this part of me that thinks, yes, democracy, we should all be voting. It's our job to take care of the society. But I know a lot of really fucking dumb people.
Well, yeah. I mean, like Trump voters.
I mean,
when the fuck did these schmucks get interested in voting?
But the thing is I don't disagree with you that there's a ton of dumb people, and do we really want all the dumb people to vote? But on the other hand, a lot of dumb people do vote.
Yes.
Right. So it's not like only smart
Sure.
people.
Oh, no.
Only,
Yeah.
and as a matter of fact, I know a
That's how we got
lot of
Trump.
smart people that don't vote.
Oh yeah, lots, and a lot of left-leaning people who just fundamentally don't believe the system works anymore, and so they don't show up to vote.
I don't disagree with you about the Bernie Sanders thing, but I also really get it. Like
Oh, yeah.
I
get the passion.
I have many. Nah, I wouldn't say. I know a few people who were like, I would rather fucking die than vote for Hillary Clinton after the way the Democratic Party fucked Bernie Sanders.
But they didn't fuck here. Okay.
Well, they kind of fucked him. I mean, like there was the whole
He's not
with
a
the
Democrat.
okay, fine, not a Democrat, but he was still running for the Democratic Party, and they were literally working. I mean, and I don't care whether it, and it
Yeah.
really doesn't matter whether or not it's
No,
true.
it's all-
But I know several smart, informed people that believe it enough that they were willing to not vote at all, than to vote for Hillary Clinton, and there was enough of those people to like let a fucking reality talk show host become the president of the United States.
I mean,
which is fucking frightening.
I know a lot of lefties, and I know some really fringe lefties, and I know a lot of diehard Bernie supporters who would fucking never vote for a mainstream Democrat. What frustrates me is that most of the loudest advocates for abandoning. Oh Jesus, you'd think I don't know.
Never
my
done a podcast before.
Yeah, I don't have my cards not always are in front of me. Anyway, the people that have just given up hope on the Democratic Party altogether, who refuse to be a part of it, who refuse to vote for them in any way. Most of them, I hate to say it again, are people who don't have much skin in the game, like white, straight men. People who it won't matter if abortion goes away, it won't matter if gay marriage goes away, because for them it can be a theoretical exercise. They can go around and say both parties are exactly the same, because you know what? They're never going to be put in a position where they're denied an abortion. They're never going to be put in a position.
The three people that I can think of off the top of my head, though, are all three women.
Really?
Yep.
Mine are all
That
men.
were so angry with the whole Bernie thing that they wouldn't vote.
angry at what happened with Bernie.
To Bernie with the DNC and Bernie.
Oh,
I couldn't get upset about that just because, again, like it or not, this is party politics. Parties get together.
Oh, right.
And they decide who their candidates
They're
will be.
corporations.
Bernie is not and has never been a Democrat. He leans left and he votes with the Democrats a lot of the time.
He leans left.
But he is not one. Yes, he leans very, very far left.
He leans so far left
more of
he's
a green
laying
party.
down.
he just did a cartwheel.
Yes. But, like it or not, the activists in the Democratic Party who make the rules had made a decision. And I don't know. There's
And
so
we
much,
all have to suffer with the consequences.
The fact that so many people were willing to let Donald Trump become president because they were mad about it.
So honestly, I don't think in
Infuriates me.
2016 that they thought that though. That's the
Didn't
problem.
they?
No, I don't think so. I think that they were so angry with the DNC that they were going to refuse to vote for Hillary Clinton.
And like a lot of people, I don't think
But they
thought
didn't.
there was a chance.
They didn't. Yeah, they didn't think that there was a chance because we were being told that. Same thing. Okay,
So
look.
they fucked around
In
and found
2000, when Ralph Nader was running on the Green Party ticket, I really believed in the cause, and I thought
Nader was a good guy.
Nader was a great guy. I loved the Green Party. I loved everything that they
I
were
love
doing
the
at the
Green
time.
Party.
But I didn't think, and in Minnesota it didn't happen, but I didn't think enough people were going to vote for Ralph Nader to make George W. Bush the president. And I was wrong.
And you fucked around and found out.
But
We should have learned our lesson back then.
yeah, but you got to remember, most people who voted in this election, at least on the left, they were children when that happened.
I know. God, that kind of so old.
There's something I want to see. I want to get your guys. I want to take your guys' temperature on. When you were talking about like the straight white voter or straight white male voter not having skin in the game.
Foreskin.
Right. I want
the best kind of skin.
Have you guys seen this too? Because, man, I saw a lot of it. I didn't see as much of it today, but for the first day or two, a lot of angry women, which I understand the anger. But, and as you guys know, like I was one of the guys that were, that got told to shut up because I didn't have a uterus.
Yeah.
Because apparently, if you're a guy, especially a straight white guy,
you don't have.
You're not allowed an opinion on abortion, which, which makes me want to say, shut the fuck up, and then which gives you the opportunity to get jumped on. Like, did you just tell her to shut up? Even though clearly she should definitely shut the fuck up. So I saw that a fucking lot. And I'm like, oh yeah, there's a winning fucking strategy, like way to win people over to your fucking cause,
You get the right to vote and you take our drinks away, you fucking
right.
Bitches.
So that I was like, that's just fucking stupid, and then I'm like, is there something I'm missing here? Like, is that fair? But then I was like, okay, so here was my thing, and I talked about this with somebody today. It was like, here was the conversation was like, well, you have to understand that women are mad. And I'm like, okay, now I get being mad. I'm mad too. All right, are you madder than me? Okay, I accept that too. But I'm not going to treat angry woman like it's some kind of fucking like disorder or whatever, and I'm not going to fucking placate them like children, which is kind of what like, oh, you just need to stay out of their way and let them cool down. No, I fucking don't, because we're adults. Yeah. And I don't expect someone to like lash out angrily at their fucking friends and allies who agree with them and shit. Well, like
that's what liberals do.
It is. It fucking is, and we all know it, and we've all talked about it. That shit. Oh, that shit needs to stop.
I agree with you. I guess I would just say that speaking on behalf of all women everywhere, again, because I'm happy to do that. We tend to get a little sensitive to the idea that going back to the Supreme Court being all white men and the people in power being all straight white men, we've spent our entire lives having mainly men tell us this is something you're not allowed to do and here's why. And you're too stupid to make your own decisions, so that's why we need to make them for you, because you're a little too emotional and you're a little too hysterical and bitches be crazy, so we do tend to get a little, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, I guess over emotional when we feel like men are still trying to tell us what we should do. That doesn't make it right that you get jumped on for saying anything. All I'm saying is that's where
and the
I
response
think it's coming from.
The response to like you're too emotional
yeah.
should never be like to get too emotional.
No, absolutely not. And I think what you're seeing now is just raw fucking anger from people, which frustrates me honestly, just because anybody who's been paying attention to this issue, abortion has been so inaccessible for at least the last 20 years. It might as well have been illegal.
Right.
Fundamentally, this isn't going to change a ton because we've already made it impossible.
Right. In many of the states like in Minnesota, it shouldn't change.
Right. At least for now, it's not going to change anything in Minnesota.
Change anything in Minnesota.
In fact, the North Dakota clinic is moving to Minnesota.
But in Texas,
in Texas, it's already fucking impossible.
It's basically impossible in Texas.
Yeah, and it's now it
still
will continue.
And
to
it
be
will
impossible.
continue to be impossible. So it hasn't really changed the dial.
Yeah. It's
in
not like,
practicality, but it is a huge step backward.
Oh yeah.
In, now here's the interesting thing. I don't know the answer to the question. Has the Supreme Court ever overturned a decision and then reinstated it?
I'll bet they have.
Prohibition? That was
no,
a
because they never.
Constitutional amendment. Probably. I mean, they can do whatever the fuck they want.
Well, they really can. That's true.
I mean, I think what.
Where's John when we need him?
Yeah.
John would know.
He
Can
would
we get
know.
Can we do a call in? And he can just,
Can I use the
we got
lifeline?
John on the phone. He would absolutely know. What was I going to say? I had a whole train of thought, and then I lost it. Just like abortion rights.
That's all right, because our battery might have ran out.
Yeah.
Did it really? No, it didn't.
What's that red light mean?
Uh-oh. It says
The
recording.
recording light?
That's the recording light.
I thought, but the red one in the middle?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's recording.
Oh, fair enough.
So crazy.
You're a real pro.
So we've been going for a while. I have some.
Oh.
There are some other things.
Yeah,
Okay, you want to finish your train of thought?
No, I think
Yep.
I remembered what I was saying. This has been coming for so long, and I have been fighting for so many years that I can't get as excited about it as I should be, or as angry about it as I should be. I am angry, but there's a huge part of me looking at even other women going, where were you 10, 20 years ago?
Well,
where were you when the midterms happened? Where were you when we were saying for years this
And that's
is what
kind of the
they
way I
wanna
vote.
do?
That's kind of the way I feel about some of these people telling me to shut up. I'm like,
Yeah.
I vote like this.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't see you at the fucking rally
I
the other
show up
day.
and do
You know,
the
like
work and-
I'm there.
yeah.
You know, like, and then I got somebody telling me to shut the fuck up, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my god, this is
I mean,
infuriating.
Telling people to shut the fuck up when you're on a social media platform where the whole thing is just to have conversations anyway.
Especially on my
Come
like,
on.
I posted
Yeah.
this.
Like,
Don't tell me to
that's-
shut up.
Again, social media is not the real world, even though it feels like
No.
it. I think things get so overblown, especially things that are on Twitter, get so overblown, and people start to feel like that's the real world.
I've never
and
been
it's
able to figure it
not.
out.
It's not the real world. Like, talking to people in real life, yeah, Twitter is, man, when you have ADHD, it's hard enough to keep track of things, and Twitter is just like thoughts coming at you.
So I say
Rapid
this all the time, but
fire.
I mean, I'm by no means unplugged. But I'm just such a narcissist when it comes to any kind of social media. Like, all I do is post shit I want to post. I don't really look at anybody else's shit, and I don't read anybody else's shit, and I just it's water off a duck's back. And I'm too fucking old to figure out a new.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd like Twitter, but I'm too old to
You would.
figure it out.
Twitter sucks. My brother loves Twitter. I've tried Twitter. I have 3 Twitter accounts that I never use.
I mean, I can't even figure out my only me's.
it's too.
Is that even the right thing? Did I say it right?
The what?
Only me.
Oh no, OnlyFans.
Oh, God damn it.
OnlyFans. Totally different.
When I said it, it came out. I was like, maybe that's not the right thing.
No, it's OnlyFans.
Bad joke.
Yeah. No. Twitter is too much. Twitter is too short. I cannot say anything in 2 sentences. That's impossible.
I'm a little long-winded myself.
I need lots of words to get my thoughts out.
I've never even had an Instagram or Snapchat
I have
account.
an Instagram.
We do have one, actually, Kyle.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, but there's just like the first 5 pictures on it.
I have one because when Instagram started happening, I thought, oh, I should do that. I don't like it as much, and I like that I have it set up so that it feeds right into Facebook, so that if I post something, that will go on my Facebook page, and then I can talk about it on Facebook.
People have
Instagram
explained to
is-
me that happens. I just don't understand it.
I don't. Instagram's all pictures. What if you want to have a thought without a picture? I don't need a picture of everything to have a thought anyway. This is not what I need.
But at least it's worth
But
1,000
abortion's
words.
illegal again, so
Now you have time.
now I got plenty of time. I'll be having babies. And one thing I was thinking about earlier, which I almost posted on Facebook, and I started writing it, and then I went, I don't have time for this. When I was pregnant for the first time, so I've never had to have an abortion. Praise Planned Parenthood and Brainerd. The only reason I've never had to have one is because I had access to easily obtained birth control as a teenager and as a young person, and that was reliable. And fortunately for me, that meant I never had an unplanned pregnancy.
How can anybody be pro-life and anti-contraception?
Because it's about religion. That's all it's about. It's about religion, and it's about punishing women. Again, they don't like it. Women should not be able to have free sex that doesn't involve consequences.
And it's about sacred sperm.
Yeah, it's men should be able. Men are expected
But
to go out and have sex with zero consequence. That's boys will be boys.
Yeah.
Women should be punished if we dare to have sex.
But
that is not,
that I hear what you're saying, and I don't.
Yeah.
I think that there is, but it's like if I'm a man and I want to fuck somebody, then
then birth
it would be
control's a
nice
good
to
thing.
have birth control so that
Right?
like I could continue to fuck those people.
You would think that
Like
that's what makes the
it
most
seems
sense
like
to
it's
me.
it seems like you're like those are not
Mm-hmm.
in your you're acting against your own best interest.
It's not a logical thing. It's a religious thing. All they care about is
Is 38% of America that fucking religious?
absolutely.
Really?
Oh yeah. Have you been to Morrison County?
Well,
Good
it's true.
Lord, people. Man, when you get religion involved, crisis pregnancy centers infuriate me. But
What is a crisis
oh
pregnancy
god,
center?
so crisis. We have one in town here, Lakes Area Pregnancy Support. It is essentially
Oh,
a
yeah.
fake. It's a fake clinic. They
Yep.
get women to believe that they're a birth control clinic, or most of the time they want you to believe they're an abortion clinic. Because if you're looking for an abortion, you'll call them and then they can talk you out of it. Well, they can scare you out of it.
And then you go in, and then they basically
And you go in and they tell you that, oh, look, you're pregnant, you have a baby. They guilt you. They show you horrible films about how terrible abortion is. They lie to you about what happens during an abortion. They're religious organizations. And they also don't believe in birth control because they're religious and they believe that you should only be having procreative sex inside the bounds of a heterosexual marriage. So
Right.
they don't encourage birth control because they don't think you should get it.
But even religious dudes want to have sex with people.
Yeah. But then you have to, then you got to get married. That's
I
all
know.
there is to it. You just got to get married.
Okay.
38% of
'Cause
the
that's a great
38%
solution.
of America doesn't think that though.
Do you guys have any
Religion's
insight
powerful.
into, like, one thing that I've been curious about, and I've been thinking about this a lot today. So how does, because I keep reading about, well, in the case of rape or incest, like that you can, so it's another thing, shouldn't have to be a thing. And I'm like, who the fuck do you have to prove that to in those states? Like, is that a thing? Does your doctor, or does a healthcare professional, or can you just say it? Or do they have some like creepy fucking redneck dude like that just keeps saying like fucking fuck yeah when you're relating your horrible story to him?
I can tell you what they did before it was legal, because there were exceptions. Before Roe versus Wade, you could get an abortion if you were deemed to be like a suicide risk, if you told the doctor you were going to kill yourself. But you had to actually go in front of a panel of male doctors and convince them that you deserved a panel.
So I suppose the same thing if you were raped or like in incest.
have to convince
That's what you
them
need
that
to do.
that's the case.
You need to go in front of a fucking a panel of fucking people, a panel of men.
Panel of
In this
men.
instance, maybe we've come so fucking far
Maybe
that there'd
there'll
be
be a
female
lady
doctors.
doctor, who
you know.
knows?
But you've
But
got to
still.
tell this fucking room full of people
Your
about this
sexual
fucking
history.
nightmarish fucking thing that happened to you.
Yeah.
Like that you fucking still coming to grips with yourself, but you're going to fucking relate that to these fucking people so that you can just
show that you're
put this behind you.
deserving to get one. You have to prove to them that you deserve to get
That
one.
fucking concept makes me want to fucking.
And that's why I hate the idea of
God, it makes
talking
me-
about rape, because you shouldn't need a reason. You shouldn't have to prove to anybody you deserve it. But there are so many people who are anti-abortion who will make an exception for themselves or for their family or for their daughter or for their girlfriend or their mistress. They're against it, but when they decide they need one, they decide that they are smart enough and well-equipped enough and their situation is unusual enough that it's okay in their circumstance. But they've decided that everybody else's circumstance
Yeah.
is not good
Well,
enough, is not...
And then we get back to the economics, of course. Like you're going out of state to get one or whatever.
Yeah, it's
is going to
impossible.
become
Just
like doable for if you have the means.
That's
you know.
always been the case, though. That
Rich women will always get abortions.
always been able to have
They'll be
abortions,
fine.
even when abortions, pre Roe
Yeah,
versus Wade.
they had
like
doctors
if you have,
they could go to, and
Yes.
there was always a network of a safe doctor they knew. Rich women, rich people can do whatever they want, and they will continue to get abortions. It's poor people, people that already... most abortions happen to people who are already parents. So if you're already a mother, that's what people have, this idea that it's all 16-year-old girls or, college girls who just want a career. It's usually mothers who already have a child and can't imagine trying to take care of another one when they have the one that they already have.
So, do you know, has this decision changed RU486? The abortion?
The medical abortion. So there's surgical abortion and medical abortion, and as far as I know, they would both be outlawed under this.
Well, they would not be out. They would be able to be outlawed.
Yes, in states.
Because all
states would be able to ban them.
Yes, because all Roe versus Wade said was that abortion is, the Supreme Court says abortion is legal in across all states. Now, without it, each state can make their own decision.
So Minnesota will still be, because it's all about states' rights. Am I right?
Yeah, that's what these people are concerned with.
Well, actually,
that's what it's not about abortion.
It makes us more free, really, when you think about it.
Well, it makes Minnesota a better place to
Women
be.
in Alabama just don't need abortions as much as women in California do.
No, they're living in the Bible Belt where things are fucking fantastic and everything's sunny and they're good at education and the economy,
and
the local economy and shit like that.
So what they really need is a few.
Bringing up the rear and everything. What we should add more babies, unwanted babies.
More babies in poverty.
So, tell me a little bit about your podcast.
Oh God.
Oh God.
God.
We started our podcast 5 years ago, I think, and it actually started because I was in an atheist group with my current co-host, Amy Withawhy. We were fans of this other podcast called Thank God I'm Atheist.
Okay.
And Thank God I'm Atheist had a Facebook group, and there was a group that launched off from that was just women fans of the podcast. It was like a ladies group. And we got into a conversation about how there really are not many atheist podcasts that are hosted by women. Really, I mean, the vast majority of atheist podcasts are white dude bros. And they're lovely people, and we like them, and we're fans of them. Thank God I'm Atheist was two guys. But they're really the only show that was hosted by women was called Godless Bitches, which was a great show. It was done by the atheist community of Austin, but it kind of fizzled out. It never really went anywhere. And so we were like, we want to hear a show that's with women. And then we thought, we like to talk. We could do that. And we did not know each other. We just decided on Facebook, we should do a podcast.
Really? Okay, interesting. So your co-host, Amy with an I.
Amy with an I.
You don't know her personally?
I've met her one time in real life.
Really?
Before we decided to do the show, we had a few phone conversations because we thought we should see if we even get along, I guess, if we're going to do a show. But it really was just, we want a show that's women atheists, because we never get to hear that. And it turned out we get along, and we have, we both live in very red areas. So that's kind of the thing that's similar. She's in Texas, and even though she's in a suburb and she's near an urban, she grew up Mormon. She's a former Mormon, and she lives in a very red area.
What's her address?
It's 557. So we talk a lot about just being in a rural red area and being a liberal. That's kind of one of the themes of what we talk about. We started out very atheist, and we quickly devolved into just any fucking nonsense we want to talk about.
So that was kind of my question was, so you've been doing this for 5 years, and you essentially do it once a week?
Kinda.
Like,
we go through big gaps where we just don't, because we're women and we're not very reliable.
That's sexist.
And sometimes we have to go get abortions.
We can be way more unreliable than you.
Oh yeah, farmer.
We have kids because we didn't have enough abortions, so then we have to deal with our fucking kids.
Who's had enough abortions?
And I'm surprised at how many people I know in the past several days have said they had an abortion.
Oh really?
And I would have had no idea. And I'm very happy that that's happening.
Some of the most adamant anti-abortion people I know have had abortions.
Oh, absolutely. But it's not something anyone wants to talk about, and I think the more
I think that's
from people,
interesting, yeah.
The more that takes the stigma away. Women don't talk about it
with
each other.
Yeah.
There's so much shame involved that most people, I don't know.
And if
my
people that you know and
abortions.
respect come out and say look, I had an abortion. This is the circumstances, and I thank God. Because whatever.
That's how we turned a corner on gay issues, on gay rights.
Right.
People started coming out of the closet and talking about it, and you realized you knew somebody who was gay.
Right.
And that's what changed the stigma. That's what we need to do, is start making it less shameful, something we can talk about. But neither
Unless
Amy,
Clarence Thomas gets his fucking way.
fucking dick.
Piece of shit.
Yeah. So Amy and I we've never had abortions, so we can't talk about our abortions, which sucks. But she was a Mormon, so she just had to keep having babies. That's the way it goes. I did not have to have any babies. I made a decision to do it, which still shocks me.
So she grew up Mormon, and then
She grew up Mormon. In fact, she was Mormon until about 5 years before I met her in that group.
So
she was married in a temple.
Makes sense to that she went. So how did you end up getting to the point to the atheist?
It was.
When did you sell your soul to Satan?
Yeah.
Oh God, 1980 now. I grew up Lutheran, but I grew up the strict kind of Lutheran. There's two different kinds of Lutherans. There's the ELCA Lutherans, and they're liberals, and they're mostly hippies, and they're good people. And Trinity is an ELCA church. No problems with the ELCA. Then there's the Missouri Synod Lutherans, and they are the conservative, they're basically the Baptists of Lutheranism, which you don't know growing up, because when you're growing up in a church, you just think everybody goes to that church and that's what it is. And so I actually went to church up through high school. My parents never forced it on me. I found out later that my mom wasn't allowed to join the church because she refused to say that men should be the head of the household.
Oh.
Apparently she went to the classes to try to join the church, and my dad never went to church. His family went to this church, and
I've got to say, what?
Yeah.
Damn.
She grew up Catholic, and then she got pregnant at 17, and that really...
Yeah,
Catholics were not fond of her after that. And since she married my dad...
Who was not a Catholic. Excommunicated.
Nor religious. His family, though, went to this Lutheran church, and she was like, well, that's the thing you're supposed to do with kids, right? You're supposed to take them to church because that's how they have a moral compass. And, she's a teenager. She doesn't know. So she brought us to church. Again, my dad never went with. He had no interest in any of this. But she didn't tell us until years later that, she'd taken a class to try to join the church. And, the first session, the pastor was talking about, well, the man should make the decisions. And she said, but what if I make better decisions? Why does, and she questioned that, and they finally just said, no, you have to believe that to join the church. And she's like, well, fuck that. But she kept sending us, which is still really, Mom? Why did we
Makes
have
sense.
to? Anyway, no, I went to college is what happened. I took one sociology class where they taught us about how religion controls people, and laid it out in a manner that made perfect fucking sense, where it was like, here's something that religions use their power to control people to do the things they want them to do.
So that's...
And that got me thinking about it. That got me more thinking, oh, so no God is an option? You don't, when you're growing up, you don't think that's even enough. They're just God. That made me start thinking about it. I didn't become a diehard atheist until after 9/11, which I got so fucking angry that the church that I had grown up in kept sending me newsletters, and one of their newsletters said that they were going to punish the local pastor because he had participated in an interfaith prayer service after 9/11.
How dare he?
And that pissed me off so much that I wrote a letter to my former church, because I like to write a sternly worded letter. I'm pretty well known for it. It made me so fucking mad.
I want to get on your Christmas card list just for the sternly worded Christmas cards.
I love a sternly worded letter. I wrote them a letter and said, this is clearly not the same type of God that I believe. At the time, I think I was still floating in deism. So, maybe there's a God, but... They sent me a letter back and said, you're no longer a member of the church. So I'm pretty proud that I got kicked out of the church, kicked right the fuck out. I floated around calling myself agnostic for a while. And then eventually, I don't know, I just got to the point where it was like, why do I believe any of this anymore?
Agnostic is what we're saying when we're trying not to hurt people's feelings.
Agnostic is, here's the thing, Penn Jillette, big libertarian, so... He, in his book, he makes the very good point that you can be agnostic and an atheist. So you're agnostic based on what you know. Do you know there's a God? Well, no, nobody does. So really everybody's agnostic. Atheism just says, I don't believe there is one. I think the chances are better than not that there probably isn't one. There could be one, and maybe someday something will happen to make me believe that. But my belief is that that probably doesn't exist, and that's why I'm an atheist. So yeah, then I started a local atheist group because I thought there's got to be other atheists in this town, and I want to find out who they are. So I put an ad in the Dispatch.
Really? How long ago was that?
2006-ish? I mean, it was...
And around here, if I saw that ad, I would be like, they're fucking trying to sniff me out.
I thought hard about how I was going to word that thing, because I remember I had been listening, I think, maybe I had been reading a book somewhere where they talked about how, again, you need to be open with your atheism because people think they don't know atheists, and atheists are one of the most hated groups in America.
Really?
Even more so than gay people.
Interesting.
When you poll people about who they would rather have as president, atheist comes in at the bottom of the list. It's
interesting.
We are
Do you
not
remember
trusted.
what was that Jodie Foster movie where?
Contact.
Contact, yeah.
Yes.
And that was kind of fairly famous because she was an
Yep.
atheist, and that was like a big thing. And I remember watching that thinking like, is this actually a real fucking thing?
Yeah,
Like,
no,
does anybody
atheists
give a shit?
Are really fucking hated. I put an ad saying, get together for non-religious community. Like I didn't use the A word. I rarely do. But I ended up with a group of like 7 or 8 people that showed up at Sunshine.
At my old restaurant? Huh.
That's where
Yeah.
we met. We used to meet there like every other Wednesday. We used the room.
A wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Yeah.
We did a viewing there once of Letting Go of God, which is an amazing one-woman show by Julia Sweeney. So yeah, we every time we met there. But no, it was kind of like and then it got a little bigger and people heard about it, and we would get together every week, and it started to grow. And at a certain point, about 5 years down the road, I thought, I just don't give a shit that much about atheism anymore.
Well, see, that's the thing that I like.
So I handed it over to somebody else and was like, if you guys want to keep hanging out, you can. I'm not organizing this anymore.
I have pretty much been an atheist my entire adult life. When I was like 16, like I went through the whole like born again thing.
Ooh, yeah.
And for a short period of time.
That's popular.
And yeah, it was like one of those things. It was like a
Were you
retreat.
one of the cool Christians?
Well, no, I really wasn't. So I went to like a retreat, and it was like sleep depth 3 days, blah blah. Go up there. People were talking tongues. I like gave my life to Jesus and all of that. 17, 16, and it lasted about a year. And in that time, like I started doing like Bible study and stuff, and was like, because I never went to church, like for a short period of time I went to a Catholic church when I lived in a town that everybody was Catholic.
Morrison
but
County.
I was like, we just go fuck off and hang around with our friends, and I didn't go take communion because I wasn't Catholic. But anyway, and then the Bible study was like, wait. What? Like I right away was like, this
seems like bullshit.
Smelled a little bit like bullshit. And then but up till that point, I don't really have much of a belief of anything. And then I was like, I think this is fucking crap.
Yeah.
And then I became an atheist. Which like isn't really anything.
Well, I feel like there's stages of especially people who grew up very religious and have
See,
become
I think
atheists.
that's kind of the key is like without...
There are stages of, we call them baby atheists. So baby atheists have just recently come out of religion and they are pissed off.
Yeah,
Because
and I probably had about a year at that point
everybody
where
kind of goes
me
through
and my
that, where you
my
wanna
few buddies were all like,
discuss
fuck
the
God,
concepts and you want to really get into all the apologetics, and that's really interesting for a few years, and then you get to a point where you're like, this just isn't that interesting of a topic anymore.
Because
you don't care.
Because the thing is like atheism
it's like not
is
stamp collecting.
It's like not stamp collecting. It's a not thing.
Yeah.
So like I can't be too passionate about something that doesn't have any of its own beliefs. I just don't. I just think what you believe is stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, well, how many times can I say that?
Yeah.
You know?
I don't think I've told either of you about this before. I was very,
But I do hate Christmas.
As much as I wish for my
Christmas.
dad's sake, like that there was like an afterlife and stuff like that, you know, and all that jazz. Like, you know, it's easy to get sucked into that. I was proud of my father for like on his deathbed this last year, saying, like, telling the chaplain that they sent in to see him, like, I don't believe in any of that.
Wow.
And I'm like, damn, you know, like, because I can see how, like, the older, you know, because the older people
Right.
get, the more inclined they are to, like, you know, because at that point, like, what the fuck else? Like, they you know, you're going to want to, you know, and nothing drives belief like the desire, you know, like, and and just that kind, you know, which is kind of weak, but, you know,
Yeah,
totally
I
understandable.
mean, it's the whole,
That's how
the whole.
human
There,
communication.
there are no atheists in foxholes.
Yeah.
which
And
is
then-
like,
So for my dad to tell him, like, I don't believe in that stuff, I'm just like, God damn. All right, way to die with your boots on, old man. You know,
Right.
like, fucking, I was impressed.
I remember as a kid thinking, I remember asking our pastor in Sunday school what happened to all the kids that didn't hear about Jesus. Because I remember being taught that you have to accept Jesus into your heart to go to heaven. And it was at a time when the famine was going on in Ethiopia, and you
Oh,
heard
yeah.
about it on the news. And I remember thinking, there's probably
Feed the
kids in Ethiopia.
world.
What if they didn't hear about Jesus? Like, I was concerned that
Well,
those
they
kids
heard
had never
it.
heard
They heard about it because of Feed the World. Remember?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think the answer, I never got a good answer to that. Like, I think I was told, well, that's why we have to be missionaries, so that we could, but I'm like, it's really, though? Is there a God that would be like, no, that kid goes to hell because nobody told him about Jesus? So
Right.
that was like the first inkling as a child that I was kind of like,
You did
this
not get the memo.
this seems, and then I also remember being terrified that my dad was going to go to hell because
Because he didn't go to
because
church.
he didn't go to church, and he never talked about religion. I honestly, we've never had an in-depth. I assume he's probably an atheist and just doesn't give a shit. But I was terrified as
Well,
a child. I would have nightmares.
Is that a generational thing? Because I did not know that my dad. I was surprised by that answer because
Yeah.
we never. My
we
dad
just
never talked
talked-
about
no,
religion.
We've never talked. I've talked with my mom about it several times, just because she deals with Catholic guilt because she was raised Catholic,
Yeah.
so she's got all this hate, residual anger towards the Catholic
My
Church.
ma was
yeah.
Catholic, and she had a baby at a young age and was
Yep.
excommunicated and all that shit.
Yep.
And like, I remember talking to her when I was a kid about God. I said, "Mom, do you believe in God?" She goes, "Yeah, but I'm going to hell." And that was it.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Well,
My
mom's got that
always
figured
had
out."
kind of this. She still hangs on a little bit to the afterlife idea, and she'll even tell you that it's because she wants to believe that she'll see her brother, like her brother died years ago, and she likes having that belief. How deeply she feels it, I don't know.
So like when
But-
I did my giving my life to Christ thing, so it wasn't an afterlife deal for me. I actually thought I was on to something with this like power of prayer, and I was also kind of pissed off when that shit didn't work. So I was like, because like
big letdown.
it was, I was like, oh my God. So like if I do this, I have like the ear of God. And then I can like talk to him and ask him for shit, and then like
should
as
work.
long as I am good and pure, then and then I'd be like, what the fuck, dude? Like, and
Dude, it's that letdown. I feel the same way. Well, to this day, every day when my mutant powers haven't manifested yet, and I'm 49 years
right,
old.
Yeah.
right.
Fuck. I just think people are shocked by atheism somehow, and how does the world makes the most sense to me if it's chaos. You
Yeah.
know, kids die of cancer.
Right.
What the fuck is that?
Yeah.
Is there
Do you want to delve into that plan and explain that one and
like
fucking?
shit just happens, bad shit happens, and I feel bad for people who rack their brains thinking about what did I do to make God do this to me? Why did God do this? When you could let go of that and just be like, because the world is chaos and shit happens, nobody did a bad thing, and that's why kids die of cancer. It's just we have to try to make it better while we're here.
Do you
That's all we can do.
Do you ever feel bad about like? Because okay, I judge the shit out of people. I judge people all day long.
Constantly.
Between my judging and pettiness, like like people think that I'm joking about being a shit person. No, seriously, shit person. But like a lot of times, especially over the last couple of days, when I've been seeing these like religious, like these arguments these anti-abortion arguments that are based in religion. And I look at these people and I'm like, I'm trying to fucking like maintain my respect towards you and all that shit, you know, but at the, like deep inside I want to tell them you're a fucking child, you know, you're fucking like what you like, you're fucking, it's one thing to have childish beliefs for your own fucking amusement and whatever the fuck, but like when your childish beliefs cause you to fucking like infringe on other people's freedoms and shit like that, well then you're a shitty, you're not just a child, you're a shitty child.
Yeah.
And
He
I'm
just
like,
wants your way and wants everybody to see things the way you see them. And
then I'm like, God damn, Kyle, that's not very cool. But then I'm like, I don't know. What
If
they're
you
doing isn't
heard-
fucking cool either. Is that in?
if you heard the stuff that didn't come out of my mouth, like I tell people, I'm pretty fucking judgy, but there's still stuff that I don't say that's I don't even want to admit to thinking. I try very hard not to be judgy and not to be judgmental and to accept people. And I think I get along pretty well with a lot of people, but man,
I don't try very hard to
I
do
have
those
some
things.
mean, judgy thoughts.
Well, that's what you get a podcast for.
That's why, yeah, I can talk about it on the podcast.
And you guys pull it off. You're both funny. You know, like
Yeah, we're both funny.
In fact, we've talked before about like stand-up comedy. Like, I think
Yeah.
you should fucking try your hand at stand-up comedy. I think you're fucking hilarious.
Had I any energy left, although you've never met my brother and I would do a brilliant podcast because he's funnier than I am with a lot less words. So like just our text message string to each other is so fucking hilarious, and you'll have a conversation with him and he'll just I've tried like, we should do a podcast, Eric. He absolutely won't.
I would love to like have a camera crew follow Kyle and I around whenever we're doing anything, because Kyle says the funniest fucking shit when he's not trying. It just kills me.
When my brother and I get going on a conversation, like it's so great, and my mom will just sit and shake her head and look at both of us like, what did I do?
So you're a big reader, right?
No.
Oh, I thought you said you were.
I mean, I listen to a lot
Well,
of
I'm gonna do.
audiobooks.
Oh, that's
don't
all
have-
I do too. I don't ever read anymore.
I don't have time.
I gave
Yeah.
up reading.
Yeah.
Though this is actually the
I
only.
listen to stuff.
Once I fucking pretty much went blind and I had sleep apnea, so every time I'd open a book, I'd fall asleep anyway.
Yeah.
All that shit was off the table.
There's a book that I want to highly recommend, and it's actually the only book in recent times that I have purchased as an actual book because I loved the audiobook so much, and I really wanted to see the pictures.
Wow.
And it's called The Immortality Key, and it is by this guy named Brian. His last name's like really long, but it is about how the cult of Dionysus became early Christianity and used the Eucharist was hallucinogenic. All right.
Ooh.
And he lays out this argument beautifully, incredibly. And I think it's actually, the book is awesome to listen to because his background is he is a really amazing linguist and he knows
love that.
ancient Greek. And then so he's reading from these ancient Greek texts and then able to like lay it over. So if you were actually reading it, you wouldn't know what those words meant anyway. You'd sound them out and you whatever. So when you're hearing him explain it, it's very cool. But then you got to actually get the book itself because there's all these like really cool pictures that it's very interesting.
Yeah.
But I really loved it. And the reason I brought that up was that like, so I have had, so I've always said like I in my adult life that I don't believe in God or whatever. But then recently, I had a DMT experience where I like went to another universe and like had this conversation with these entities, and it was a very interesting experience. And since then, have become less rabid in my non-existence of faith. At least I can understand why people feel like there is more to this than what we see. It hasn't made me any. It hasn't definitely hasn't made me any more religious, right?
I can see what I mean. I really liked being religious when I was.
Well, I get
kinda
the
one of those,
appeal
like,
to it, yeah.
Well, my Sunday school, our youth leader at our church took us to Country Kitchen and got us free caramel rolls every Sunday, and that's the only reason I continued showing up, but it worked.
Are they still in that business? Because I will go to Sunday school for free caramel rolls.
But not at Country
Kitchen.
Kitchen.
She was doing. Back in the
not.
day.
Back in the day. Oh, yeah.
Back in the day.
Kind of went down. I don't even think they exist anymore.
Caramel rolls? No, I'm pretty sure they're around.
The Wings. That's the best caramel rolls in town by far.
Yeah, I feel like I have a theory that everybody in Brainerd worked at Country Kitchen at some point, and if they didn't, they're not really from Brainerd. But
Might be true. I never worked there, though.
You probably don't exist
either.
I don't know.
I'm a transplant from down the road, though.
Well, that's the awkward. To me, one of the most awkward parts about, I guess, the atheism thing is just as a parent and trying to raise your kid so that they respect other people and their religion.
So did you teach your children, or did you convince your children there was a Santa Claus?
Oh, my husband and I thought over that one. I did not want to teach them about Santa Claus. I was like, no, Santa Claus is fake.
It's training wheels for God.
Thank you.
And I refuse. And it was with both my wives. I am not Mormon. They were at different times.
I was getting the way that came out. I was like, God damn.
Yeah, not Mormon. Different times.
Yeah.
But both of them wanted to do it, and I was like, I absolutely refuse to convince my children that there is a fucking fairy tale that's going to it's not happening.
Just so you can burst their bubble later.
But I will refrain from saying Santa Claus is bullshit until they're 4.
I kind of made
that was it.
Compromise.
4 was my but after 4, if they're like, Dad, why? How does? No, I'm because all I would say is ask your mom. Right.
I would just,
but after 4, I'd be like, "There's no fucking Santa Claus, kid.
My
don't be stupid."
Family, who's very Catholic, they were big into Santa Claus and seeing how long,
which
it's
makes
magical.
No sense for Catholics.
I would not. I was of the opinion that I'm not going to lie to my child. I'm not going to look my child in the face and just lie about something that I know. So my compromise was I will play along until one of them looks me in the face and asks me if Santa is real, and I am not going to lie about it. So we just waited, and our older son was 4.
Yep.
And he was just like, is Santa real? And I basically described Santa the way I described God, which is that a lot of people believe that, but we don't. But it's okay if other people do, but we don't really think there is. But you can decide whatever you want, and we'll still love you. But he actually was... The nice thing was it tore down all of the other ones, too. So the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy.
Yeah, and it's really... I would.
And he
that
told me
Tooth Fairy.
later,
I'm not giving you fucking money for pulling your tooth out, you little shit.
My son, who's 18 now, told me later that when he figured out the Santa thing, and when I told him he wasn't real, and he found out the Easter Bunny wasn't real, it was a huge relief because he had been terrified of the Easter Bunny, and I had no idea. But he thought the Easter Bunny was like the guy at the mall.
You shouldn't let him watch Donnie Darko.
The Easter Bunny was in Donnie Darko.
Yeah, and he thought that the guy dressed up like the Easter Bunny came into our house in the middle of the night to leave candy. And he's got a horrible anxiety disorder anyway.
That's
so that
fucking
made it worse.
hilarious.
But he was like, I felt so bad picturing my poor little 3-year-old just being terrified of a giant rabbit bringing candy into our house.
Plus, a rabbit that lays eggs is an abomination.
My younger son, it took a little long. I think he was 6, maybe. But we did the same thing where I'm like, fine, you can write Santa on I'm not playing along. And when he asked, I was just like, no. I mean, maybe, but no, I don't think he is. No.
I think that's going to be...
me giving you the presents.
That should be an easy one for me because Christine being raised as a witness, they don't have Christmas. Yeah, they didn't have Christmas and shit anyway.
Wow.
So all this stuff so that one that won't be a tough fight with Bear.
Yeah.
But man,
I love the shit out of secular Christmas though. I am all about Christmas.
Yeah, shit, yeah, it's a great family holiday. It's
I
awesome.
do all of it. I do all the secular shit. I even
hate it.
I have a nativity that's got action figures in it. Butters is
that's kind of cool.
South Park. There's a T-Rex. Turns out my kids hate it. I thought it was cool, but whatever. I love Christmas is my favorite.
So now when I have a grandchild now. Jesus Christ.
So old.
How is he? 3?
Yeah.
May be coming up on 4. But when I talk to him about Santa Claus, I'm actually going to just go right to the meat of it and get into the muscaria mushroom and the whole like flying reindeer and all of that stuff. And,
that'll be good.
Yeah.
He'll enjoy that.
Yeah.
You should have told him about Krampus and shit like
Krampus,
that. And just fucking, just drop a fucking bomb on
You want to
Christmas.
talk about Santa Claus?
I did have to tell my 4-year-old, the now 18-year-old, I was like, so listen, other kids do believe Santa's real.
So tear it down.
And we don't want to make them angry. So let's just keep it to ourselves.
Laugh at them.
I had to tell him in first grade had an argument with a girl on the bus over whether God exists. And I was terrified that I was going to get an angry parent calling me.
One of your children ever like got a little religion?
No.
So that's difficult.
But they're going to rebel and turn into Republican youth ministers,
Oh, I'm
and that's my
certain.
fear. No, my oldest is a total... Like, we tried very hard not to raise them as atheists. We were like, this is what we believe. You believe what you want. Maybe you'll change your mind about what you believe. We don't care. You're still our child.
I seriously cannot. It must have. God, I can't remember which kid it was. That's weird. But one of my children. Man, I can't remember. But went through a period of time where he like was exploring religion and he would pray before he ate and shit like that. And it was like tough to be tolerant, you know, because it wasn't like I wasn't clear about what I believed.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I honestly don't even remember if either of my children ever asked me if I believed in God, but I think like it was pretty clear that I didn't. So like,
yeah, we didn't sit them down and we're like, hey, this is an atheist house. It was just as things come up, we were like.
I even tried to convince myself that I was religious in my adult life. It wasn't that long ago, and
it was for a chick.
Yeah, it was.
I tried to convince myself I was vegan
reasons.
for a while.
Oh, that's
4
even
fucking
weirder.
years.
Veganism is a cult, man.
Yeah, you'll do some crazy shit for women.
No, I had to tell my son, let's not argue about God's existence on the school bus or at school, because when I had to explain to him that we were in the minority in town, like he just assumed everybody didn't believe in God.
You've got to sit there and tell him, you don't want mommy to get burned at the stake, do you?
And he was like, did you know my friend Mitchell goes to church? I'm like, yeah, most of your friends do. You're the weird one, not them.
Right,
So
pretty
let's
hard.
not go to school and try to. It was very awkward. But he's actually much nicer and more tolerant of religion than I think my husband and I are. One of his really good friends when he was a kid is Catholic. I assume still is. I have no idea. But he wasn't allowed to eat meat on Fridays at school, and so my husband told our son, oh, you should bring like a big sub sandwich and just eat it in front of him, right? And our son was like, why would I do that? That's mean.
I'm not an
Why would
asshole,
you?
Dad.
And I know, and I'm looking at, he's like, okay, I guess, good. But he's like, that's just
So he missed the
cruel.
whole
Why would you do
mean
that?
part of being a teenager.
I actually do
Honestly,
think.
creepily, yeah.
I actually do think that the younger generation is
they're
just
better.
much better than
They're
us.
so much better.
In some ways, in
Some
other ways,
ways, yeah.
not. Like
There's still assholes, and there's still things that
the whole
aren't.
idea that you.
But everything that like they're not better than us about is still shit that we did to them. So who can we blame?
They're
The one
so
thing
much
that
more
the one thing that
accepting.
I worry about the younger generation, I goddamn sounded fucking old right now,
Kids.
is that they never have to stand. They never have to stand up for themselves. It's the whole like, you know, the whole like no bully zone, so on and so forth. I feel like if you never have to face adversity, when adversity strikes, it's difficult to handle. But on the other side of that, like Peyton, my youngest son, he's just fucking like absolutely tolerant of like,
yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, whatever you are.
Both of my sons are just. I look at them and I look at their friends, and they're so much more kind and tolerant than we were as kids. When I look at the bullying that happened when I was in school, just the out in the open, horrible bullying that I saw, I spent a lot of time volunteering in my older son's classroom, and I would just watch all of these kids. And there's always going to be asshole kids. There just always are. Nothing was perfect.
Don't you love that people act like they're like
But-
children can't be assholes?
Yeah, kids, lots of kids are assholes.
Lots of kids are assholes.
But I would also watch these kids just be more accepting of each other and stick up for each other more. And I don't know, they just see, and when it comes to issues like, you know, diversity and gay, and I think a lot of that is, honestly, they're able to, with the internet, interact with so many more people.
Yeah, that's probably true.
My younger son, one day was trying to use Google Translate to speak Spanish, and I'm like, what is... And he told me he was talking to somebody in Brazil, and they could speak English, but he thought it would be really cool if he could learn some Spanish so he could talk to them in their language. Like that...
Which is actually Portuguese.
Whatever. Which would have... Again,
Sorry.
I grew up in Brainerd, so how... Yeah. I don't even remember.
Which is
Brazil.
a ways from Spanish. It's tough if you speak Spanish. It's hard to actually understand Portuguese.
Some foreign language
But-
he wanted to learn. I told him to stay away from foreigners, but he didn't.
When Logan, my youngest son, he like for a long period of time, 100% of his friends were like online.
Yeah.
And like
both of my
kids. It was kind of cool because he had like some friends from Germany, some friends, you know, and he had like all this different weird cultural experience, and it's cool. So is like, it's like me being born in, you know, St. Louis Park, and it's like it's just not abnormal to see people of color. They're just regular people. Like
my oldest son is somehow really into Hong Kong politics.
Oh.
Like I'm very into politics, but I'm very into local politics, and I'm a typical American who just doesn't pay enough attention to the rest of the world.
I hear shit like that, and it makes me feel like I was such a dullard at 18.
And my son is just like, did you know what's happening in Hong Kong?
Well, actually, it's kind of interesting because, like, Hong Kong, like, China believes, like, like, that was super weird that, like, it's a super fucking weird thing that, like, Hong Kong is its own country, but China doesn't, like, acknowledge that. And we, as Westerners, well, not we, me and you, we can, but, like, politically, like, you can't, like, you can't say Hong Kong is its own country politically. You can't do it. Yeah. And then, of course, Trump, you know, bull in the China shop, he fucking does it. And it's like, which was like cool, except he did it because he's an idiot. Yeah, he didn't do it because he was trying to make a statement about, like, oh, don't tell me what I can and can't say. Like, he just had no idea. He had no idea that Hong Kong wasn't. So that it was supposed to be like a secret.
And they should have made him just to qualify his statement. They should have made him find it on a map.
Right, but yeah, because it was like the whatever it would be, Prime Minister of Hong Kong called him like shortly after his inauguration, and he like took the call and made a big thing about it, and it was like a huge deal for China. They were super fucking pissed.
Beautiful phone call? Was it the best?
Oh, it was the best phone call ever. Yeah,
I figured.
Yeah, it was great. But it's that's so crazy that that you can't like acknowledge Hong Kong. Is that what your son is into?
Yeah. Well,
let's have him on the podcast. I'm really interested.
He's an interesting child. I pulled him out of school young, so now he is a whole thing. He's got a horrible anxiety disorder, and he's one of those kids that I did worry about. Maybe I should be tougher on him somehow, or maybe I am coddling him somehow. But now that he's older, we have the best conversations about just everything, about different philosophies and what he thinks about stuff, and he tells me more about what it was like when he was a kid dealing with that terrible anxiety.
How old is he now?
He's 18, but when he was about 11, he was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, and it was to the point where, I mean, he was having full panic attacks every single morning before school.
Yeah.
Like, you know, heart palpitations, take me to the hospital. It's a long, long story, but he's been on meds ever since he was, well, let's see, he got diagnosed at 10, and we waited a full year trying to do therapy, and it just...
Yeah, sometimes drugs work.
He just had to, and he became a different kid. Like, and he says all the time he's thankful that we did that because
Right.
he knows he would be a ball on the floor just. But he's an interesting person, and I look at him and I think when I was 18, I don't know, I drank a lot and like my friends and I hung out.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like my kids are like.
My kid has no interest in doing any of that.
Right, when I was 18, I was Kavanaugh.
Right.
Mm-hmm. When I was 18, I was just slutty, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, you were a Kavanaugh girl.
Yes, exactly. I was a Kavanaugh girl. Yeah. Oh God. I hate that. I don't know.
I
hate America
keep
a
talking
lot
about
right now.
Oh, that's pretty easy to hate.
It's pretty hard for me to feel hopeful about anything, but I do feel like kids are getting better. And if I had a nickel for every time I had to listen at work to some old people start complaining about kids and their generation and their cell phones and I'm like, you realize that throughout human history, that's just what everybody does, is complains about the kids these days.
And every single fucking problem, like I said before, like it's us. Like
we're
the phones
ones that raised them.
Those kids did not invent those phones. They did not create them. Nor were they born with them.
No. This is the world they live in, and we raised them, and our parents raised us, and those old people bitching raised our parents, and...
So, this is a weird story, but Peyton, when he was about, I would say 10 or 11, he got like super into Minecraft.
Oh.
And he started building these giant like sculptures in Minecraft and they were like action scenes and they were to scale. So it was like he'd have his guy and then he'd do the bad guy or whatever, and they were in these battle scenes. These sculptures were fucking amazing, and they were giant. They were like 10-1 or whatever. And the person I was seeing at the time was really critical of how much time I let him spend on Minecraft, and I was like, you gotta see these fucking sculptures. Because I'm telling you, if he made them out of Legos, we'd be calling him fucking Picasso. Mm-hmm. And it's
nobody would have a problem with it.
Nobody would have a problem. But because it's in this virtual world, like, it somehow isn't real. Which it isn't because it's virtual. But he still put the fucking blocks together, and they are truly amazing.
Yeah.
And what's the chances he's going to work with Legos? You know what I mean? He's going to be working in some kind of digital environment going forward. So the skills he's learning here are important. And I think that is true, that kids
really lax person about screen. Like, it's weird because my brother and I have complete opposite parenting styles from each other. He is very much he and his wife are overachiever parents. Every minute with their children is enriching, and they are always doing things, and they go places. And
those people.
They're really good. They cook them meals from scratch. My brother gets up and makes pancakes from scratch every single morning.
I don't like them.
Whereas I make my kids feed themselves. And one day my son was like, holy shit, you're making breakfast? I'm like, yeah, because my nieces were over and I had to cook for them. He's like, oh, I'm going to enjoy this momming you're doing. But no, I am very hands-off with my kids. I don't
I'm like,
care
yeah, I'm
about
making breakfast for me.
Screen time does not, I gave up on the screen time thing. I don't care anymore.
Yeah, I never
because
have.
You know what? That's especially my older son. He's got 3 best friends that he talks about constantly that I know all about because he tells me everything about them. They live in town. They're his age. They've never met before.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And when I ask him, I remember when he's been hanging out with these dudes online since he was 14. And one of them he met because he rode the bus with a real life friend of his. Another one, like his dad owns
and he's like,
Ponchos,
yeah, I don't really like him. I don't really like him in real life.
Yeah, no, these 4. The other one lives like down the road from us. They have never met.
But they have this online
but
thing.
Every single day they're online and they're playing. And I asked when he turned 16, I'm like, why don't we have invite these guys over? They could hang out. They could spend the night. And he looked at me like I was the craziest fucking person.
Well, yeah.
And
because
he's
then
like, why would I do that?
Right.
I see them every day. I'm like, no, but like in real life, you could. And then he told me later, like the next, he's like, so Mom, I told my friends what you said about how they should come over, and they were all laughing too. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You don't want to meet in real. I'm like, tell your friends your mom is crazy. And until she can meet them in person, she's not going to leave you alone. And he's like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
But I know all about these kids.
It's
and what
not
they, like.
It's like.
But that's his community.
Yeah.
That's what he does, and he.
Yeah, Peyton has a like he does this every Wednesday. He's a DM for a big D&D game, right?
Oh.
And it's like I really like it, but he's like yeah, I was looking at this new job, but they wouldn't give me Wednesday nights off, so I told them to fuck themselves. So it's like, because that's like his thing. He's like, oh no, man, I'm a DM, right? And but he's got like this huge group, and like it's like really important to him. He spends a ton of time, and I'm like jealous.
Well,
because I'd like to have a cool group of people to play D&D with.
That's something that I think is better about their generation, is that they have gotten to figure out that stuff is important to them, and that it's okay to make that important, and that their life doesn't have to be about a fucking shitty job that they hate doing all the time. That they can kind of make their mental health a priority and make those things. I don't know. They get pegged as selfish all the time, but like that's good as humans. We should have those things that we. I
always
that we find enriching, and we shouldn't have to.
And and the value and different types of self-care and stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree.
I think overall, again, there are some assholes. I've met other people's children, but for the most part, my 12-year-old, we went to Arts in the Park yesterday, and he very thoughtfully picked out a painting that he liked. He's 12. I said, we're going to Arts in the Park. We're going to support local artists. That's why we're here. Here's some cash. Let's try to find some art we like, and we'll buy it. And he's like, okay. And he ran off, and, he had his phone. So I'm like, please don't get kidnapped. If I were a pedophile, I would come to a big event where there's kids. So it's going to be okay.
That's another thing.
But
that's another one of those things, that's not real.
I know it's not. That's why I'm like, it's fine. I don't stop.
It's not that kids don't
overblown.
get abducted.
It is so
it's just
overblown.
that they. Yeah,
it's so rare too.
Right.
Yeah, and it's people they know. If it's going to happen, it's somebody they know. Like intellectually, I know, but I'm also like, oh, what if this is the? But no, he ran away and he came back and he said, "What's your favorite color?" I'm like, purple, I guess. So he left again, and then he came back with purple earrings. Oh. And it was very sweet.
So you gave him money.
I gave him money. He
go
bought
buy
me
whatever
earrings.
he wanted, and he bought you earrings.
Yes, but then after that, he still had more money, so he was again wandering around by himself, and I found him at a booth that was all like oil paintings, and he was talking to the vendor himself with his cash, handing it over, getting this painting, and he told me, he's like, no, I couldn't decide between that one and the winter one, but this is a spring one. And like he did this whole kind of grown-up thing where he just could pick out the art, tell me why he liked it, deal with the guy on his own, give him the cash, and it was kind of like, oh, that's a very proud moment for me. He is much sweeter than my older son, who's kind of like
same.
Is more like me and is kind of a dick.
Hope Logan's not watching this, but
yeah. No, my older son is me. Just we both have very dark senses of humor, and my younger son is just like a sweet little ball of sweetheart. And
me and Peyton, my younger son, have always been gelled very tight. And then me and my older son, Logan, who is an awesome kid, he was a superstar in jiu-jitsu and all that stuff, and we have a lot of shit in common. We butt heads all the time. Like, I want to like, ugh.
I suspect that it's not a secret, but my younger son and probably my older son, I think they both are on the spectrum, in some capacity. Just based on a lot of personality things, but it's hard because one of the things with autism is having a hard time recognizing sarcasm, and I am sarcastic as fuck. Like I only speak sarcasm, and I have had to teach myself how not to do that, because
that'd be tough.
When I'm talking to him and I'm being sarcastic, he sees that as me lying to him, and he gets very upset about it. Or he'll be like, "You're not telling me the truth." You can see him trying to kind of parse out, "Oh wait, you were kidding when you said that."
Right.
But I do it so much that I've had to really make an effort to be like, "Okay, no, I'm not gonna And he's trying to understand that when I say things, and I've had to have conversations with my husband where I'm like, he really thinks that, like, when you're laughing at him, that you're laughing at him, that you're not, you know, the kind of teasing you would do normally with a kid, where you do. Our younger son thinks that you are being mean to him, or that you are lying to him, or that you are, and so it's been interesting having to teach myself how to have some, and my
at this stage of the
son,
game, teaching yourself anything is difficult.
And my older son is also a sarcastic piece of shit. So like the entire family, that's all we do is talk in sarcasm, and I've had to really try to make an effort to be like, no, I talk to him in a different way, and I don't know, it's interesting that you, as you age, still have to try to do new things. And yeah, and it's weird how different two children can be that came from the same set of parents and live in the same house and grew up in the same totally opposite people. So I need to quit hitting the mic. But yeah, anyway, so
Yeah.
Well, should we?
it was fun
awesome.
talking to you. Yeah.
Yeah, this was awesome.
Yeah. We'll have to do this again so we can talk
I
about.
I didn't even get to
still-
yell about mansplaining
I
or
know.
mansplaining or any. I had a whole mansplaining thing.
Which, if you don't know, is
is
short
just
for
explaining.
Yeah. Or man summing up if there's no time to mansplain. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just me telling you how to
I
do
mean,
something because
really,
I'm a man.
Mansplaining is just
Explaining.
this woman has a doctorate in marine biology, but this dude who got C's in high school is going to tell her what dolphins are like. It's a very, very specific set of communications.
That is not
that
how
fall
it is
into mansplaining.
used.
Well,
In the vast majority of the time, I or at least not in my personal, what is it called? My learned experience.
there you go.
That's I fucking hate that. In my learned experience, I have been accused of mansplaining when really what I'm doing is I'm
explaining.
being a man
Explaining.
and I'm explaining how to do something that you don't know how to do. And it has
That's just
nothing to do
explaining.
with your gender. It's just because you're a dum-dum. All right? So, like, if I'm explaining something to a stupid person, it's just explaining.
That's just
It doesn't matter what your
explaining,
gender
yeah.
is. All right? If I'm explaining it to a person of color, it's not white-splaining. It's just explaining.
Unless it's explaining to them what it's like to be a black person. In which case, then it would be white-splaining.
Well, I don't go around
so don't
and
do that.
explain to women what it's like to have their period, because I'm sure it's super annoying.
It's not fun. No. IUDs, by the way. If you don't have an IUD, ladies, now's the time to get one because
Improvised
Improvised explosive
explosive
device?
uterus?
exactly.
or-
Yes. It makes your whole uterus explode. Yeah.
Perfect.
No, I do. I watch your guys' show sometimes, and I will take notes and be like, no. You're wrong about this, and here's why.
Yeah, you and
So-
my sister Shelley would
Yeah,
get along well.
Pretty
Yeah.
much. My brother doesn't listen to my show, but he did once, and he actually sent me a long text thread going, "You are so wrong about this," and just
Actually, my sister Shelley watches every episode. She was one of the ones that hit me up the other day.
I've
She
seen
said,
her on
"Is
the show,
everything
yeah.
is everything okay with you? Because you guys haven't put out any content." And I said, "No, everything's fucking great. Just
I think
busy."
she was on the show.
Yeah, she was on the show.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that was the
remember
one where
seeing
we
her on the
talked
show,
deeply
yeah.
about ancient civilizations and aliens. Yeah, that was a fun one. But like she's really our number one fan. But she was always like, you know, correcting us, you know, and letting us know when we like are totally. I mean, we say some really weird shit like, you know, like Neanderthals like 8,000 years ago.
Yeah, my brother is to the left of me. Like he's.
Oh my God.
Well, he's also Yang Gang. He was a big Yang Gang guy.
How far
He's
left do you have to
not-
go before you're right again?
Oh, I don't know.
if you go left far enough, you get your guns back.
He's back. He decided to go back to school, so he's 40 now. Let's see, I'm 40. No, he's 41. But he decided to go back to school, and he's going for political science, and he wants to run campaigns. Like he would be a terrible candidate because he does not like talking to people, and he's an introvert. But for some reason, he was Bernie bro through and through. But he's also a realist, and thinks it's really stupid that people are like, nope. If I can't vote for that guy, I'm definitely not voting for this.
But we could
Yeah,
just solve it
he's-
with ranked choice voting.
But yeah, I said
True,
something
true.
about Yang, and he had to something
Andrew
about
Yang?
earbuds, and yeah, he's big fan of Andrew Yang, which I am
like
too.
him.
I am a fan of universal basic income. I think it's great, and we should do that.
Don't
and
know how I feel about it. But it's
it.
not. It's,
I don't know
just
enough about
it. That's exactly it. I don't think that we have a good enough model for it yet, but I think we could.
I think when we had this pandemic
love-
and they just mailed us all checks, I think we could just keep doing that.
Man.
Yeah, except that it didn't work very well.
That experiment that they, the San Francisco experiment with universal
yeah.
basic income, that blew up like a motherfucker. But that was so fucking. That's another instance where, like, of liberals being completely fucking stupid. I'm not saying all liberals, even though I don't identify as a
Yes,
liberal
you
anymore
are.
because there's too much fucking stupid out there. But the whole, well, we're going to give it to this. We're going to give it to this many people, but half of those people have to be able to prove that they are.
That defeats the purpose.
Yeah,
That
they had to
defeats the
prove that
purpose.
they were like
Needed.
in need.
in the no, not at all. They had to prove that they were LGBTYGIN.
Oh.
Like they had to, and I'm like, wow,
That they were
like
it was a minority
you just
status.
like you just had to fucking like be
The
so
whole
inclusive
point.
that you're exclusive, and fucking they fucked it up horribly.
The whole point of universal basic income is that it is fucking universal.
Right.
That's the point. I mean, that's
Right.
that you can't. That's,
It's in the name.
The biggest
Otherwise, it's
thing
just-
about Andrew Yang that I really liked, and which I think people mostly like overlooked, was not so much the universal basic income, but how he planned on paying for the universal
Yeah.
basic income.
Yeah.
And like basically
it's
like
America. We can afford it.
well, basically like he was like, you know, Facebook, Amazon, all of these people, they're literally like profiting from our from your data,
Yep.
right? Well, they just need to pay for that, and like his plan to pay for it was
Makes
far
sense.
more interesting than the universal basic income.
They already do it in Alaska.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, but that's pipeline money.
Yeah, but
But
it's money that they
it
get
is,
for not
right.
doing anything, just for being citizens.
Yep.
That I have relatives who live in Alaska. They just get the money.
Yep.
And it comes from a thing that, like,
Yeah, it's from the
we
National
have a
Wildlife
model.
Reserve.
It could work. It could solve so many of our fucking problems. It could relieve so much suffering. But people like Donald Trump need to have an extra yacht or two. So,
Word.
oh well. I
On
guess
that
some
note.
people have to be homeless.
Yeah, well, thankfully, it's job.
Anyway.
It's
But yes,
it's
thank
job
you.
security for me.
Thank you for inviting me. Secular Soup is my podcast.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
I'm gonna check
don't
that out.
listen to it.
You can get more Amy on Secular Soup. She's had some really big celebrities. on the
Huge
show.
guests.
Kyle
some
Amundsen.
Kyle dude on this one
Huge.
time.
Huge star.
The
We
best.
were talking
These are
last
great.
night, and I was talking about one of our fans, and she's like, "Yeah, he's been on the show," and I said, "I don't think so," and then I went, "Oh my God, he was."
You forgot Kyle was on the show?
Not Kyle, a totally different
a different
guy
one.
who's a fan, but I did an entire episode with this guy and forgot it existed.
I forget people are on the show too.
Yeah.
But I mean, I forget everything.
So do I. I
I
forget what we
forget that
talk
shit,
about
too.
5 minutes after we talk about it. So
Sometimes I
when it's-
wish I could forget when people were on the show.
Well,
I forget.
talking about you. No, I'm just kidding. All right, sounds good. We will see
Thank
you guys
you.
soon.
I got the blues so bad one time it put my face in a permanent frown. You know I'm feeling so much better I could cakewalk into town. I woke up this morning feeling so good, you know I laid back down again. Throw your big leg over me, mama, I just might not feel this good again. My baby, oh my baby, I love the way she walks. When my girl gets sleepy, I love the way she baby talks. My work done got scarce, honey, all my work, it done got hard. I spent the whole day stealing chickens, mama, from the rich folks' yard. I got the blues so bad one time it put my face in a permanent frown. Now I'm feeling so much better, I could cakewalk into town. I wanna go on a picnic in the country, mama, and stay all day. I don't care if I don't do nothing, just while my time away. I got the blues so bad one time it put my face in a permanent frown. You know I'm feeling so much better, I could cakewalk into town.